we're rolling in right around here. We should be hitting right at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's see, I'm going to have this up on my phone in a moment so I can hear my own audio as we're coming through, because I want to make sure that the microphone sounds good. Getting green bar in OBS. Alright, so audio's coming through fine. That's good, because I was checking and making sure. I was having like a little bit of a setup issue. Well, not even so much an issue, just had some settings that weren't on earlier. And make sure we got proper microphone is set up on the right one. So I got the new bad boy out and ready to go today. Alright, everyone. Nice to see you guys starting to pour in. We're going to be doing the first bit of celebrating the 3rd anniversary of CR-Volcanic tonight. It is 3 years to the day. On January 10th, be 2023 when we started this. Probably going to do something a little bit more conventional tomorrow, but for today, I had an interesting idea. Part of it being... Let's move ourselves in here. Kind of go into there. It'll be black screen for a moment. Might also take the chat off of OBS in case I want to record this for tomorrow. Just have the browser thing, and I want that up. Is it not gonna... Hang on a moment. Nope, it does bring that up. Okay. All right. I was just going to say, like, is it not going to do the... Let me disable that. Keep that back up, because I want to make sure it's actually going to play the playback thing, because it wasn't... I don't know. That was just OBS acting weird, I think. I'm just going to run this for...
Change. No more loading.
Okay, hang on. I was like, is this going to act odd if I have OBS up? Like, it's acting like it's blocking a copyright thing, but I guess... I don't know why OBS was kicking it back to another screen right there, but it seems like it is a non-issue. It's just OBS acting weird, not a odd relationship. Okay, yeah, that's popping up fine. All right, so I might have chat off for this. So, I want to talk about why I want to do this stream tonight. So, it's very much kind of like a Lord of the Rings-tism that's been going on in my brain right now. I've been just super into them this month, especially, like right after the new year ended. And that comes, if you have any relationship with those movies whatsoever, it's a big part of that is like the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I'm like, I want to do some like behind the scenes making of stuff. And unfortunately, I had to do some file spring cleaning in my outer hard drives just to like free up some space, especially after the world review. It was just eating up memory out of my card and whatnot. So I don't have a lot of the original like editing files. I'm like, but it would be kind of cool to do some like making of behind the scenes for the world review, right? So I figured what I could do is I only have the file remaining of the whole 10.5-hour one, but I can obviously pause it. I think it'd be kind of cool. I put it on a lower volume and I let it run. If anybody's watched a director's commentary on like a DVD special, it's you put it on low volume, you let it run, and the guy who makes it or works on it or whatever just like talks over it. We'll go over like creative process, going over the scripting, kind of what went into certain things, what the mentality was. I figured that might be just legitimately interesting content to put out there. We'll see if anybody else has any interest in it. Whatever. But, and I think we might just kind of hang out afterwards. But for a couple of hours, you know, if you guys want to tag along and listen, I figured like I thought it would just be fun to just kind of like talk about the video, because I've been wanting to talk about the video. I don't always get a ton of opportunities to. but I figured it'd be fun to just kind of share what went into the scripting and the working and going into actually creating this thing. I might be legitimately interesting for other people who want to do projects like this or just have an interest in behind the scenes and making of like I do. So even if this is for kind of a limited niche, I feel like this is just cool content to make. Let's see. So yeah, no, we're only going to do part 1 of the world review, especially for tonight. There's some consideration on whether or not I want to do part 2 and part 3 as well, but mostly I think when you go into especially part 2 with the monster coverage, but even some stuff with part 3, a lot of it I think is just going to be a good chunk of reiteration. It is going to lack the same mechanical analysis and insight and diving into how those actually worked that you would get out of talking about the game mechanics. I feel like that's a whole lot more involved and like what I actually had to do and had to think about and had to consider when going into it. So I think what the plan is going to be is we're going to go after the first part of the world review tonight. We're going to do like a director's commentary over it for the 3 hours or so that it'll last for. We'll break after that. I think we'll probably just like hang out maybe for like another hour or something like that. You know, I'll talk to you guys. We can get some back and forth going. Maybe I'll throw like stories 2 up and like finagle around in that or something for a little while. And I think tomorrow, because I played Try on both of the other anniversaries, I think I'll play Try tomorrow as well. And just do 2 streams for the 3rd anniversary. I got $5 coming in from Kerm. Really been a year since we ended the war in Ukraine with Orbeez for our pro-global warming cause. That was a year ago. Long time. Pin the lobby code. Sure, I can pin the lobby code for you. You guys are going to do Fatalis while I do commentary? That sounds fun. Yeah, all right, so this is going to be at a lower volume, not like full low, but like around 35 should probably be fine. You guys can let me know if I'm too quiet or too loud, or the video's too quiet or too loud. I'll keep an eye, but for the most part, I'm just going to set the video, and we're just going to go. And after things are said and done, you can tell me if this was at all interesting. I'll have my kind of eyeball on chat, but I'll mostly be watching the review. So there's not going to be a whole lot of audience interaction for the commentary part, because I do want to record this as a proper commentary. But after the fact, I'll be talking and interacting with you guys. So just sit back and enjoy, and we're going to get into this, right? So let's start. So intros with video essays are usually pretty odd to kind of get into and figure out precisely what you want to do. I'm going to set that to around 25. I think that should probably be fine. So the main obstacle right here is what exactly you want to be talking about, how you actually want to go into the hook. Let me get that a little bit lower.
Will always probably be the most
because I don't want there to be too much overlap in the voices. So yeah, usually what the thing you're going to be looking into is what you actually want to be hooking people into. There's a lot of video essays that I bump into out in the wild where it's all very much like, this is Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter started in 2004 with Monster Hunter 1 on the PlayStation 2, and its controls were kind of weird, but now it got into Monster Hunter. Like, there's some people do kind of like the very kind of history of summation type of thing. So with something this large and this ambitious, there was always going to be the issue of how do you actually hook someone into it. And the general approach that I went into when trying to write the intro, I'm going to be adjusting the volume up and down a good chunk of this, I apologize. So the issue that you're going to run into is, how do I actually want to present this game? Like, what do I want to present from the get-go? And mostly what I leaned into is Monster Hunter World is big, it's popular, it's important, it's controversial, and it's also very commercially successful. So there's it's kind of this kind of cultural touchstone, especially within, I would say within video games in general, but also certainly when it comes to how Monster Hunter operates. You know, even with other games that might typically outsell it, or other games that might be more important on developmentally, fundamental level, I think it's pretty undeniable that in terms of the direction of the franchise, Worlds probably will ever, forever be the most important one, barring perhaps the one that started it all. But it's pretty hard to get away from how significant World was. And with that is going to come with people that hate it because of the radical direction that it brought about. It's going to bring in a lot of people who absolutely loved it because it's the one that they came in on. You're going to get people who are going to be down on certain changes. You're going to have people who are going to be up on certain changes. And that's kind of more so what I wanted to go into and wanted to establish right from the very beginning with the intro of this essay, is more so that this is a controversial cultural touchstone when it comes to Monster Hunter itself and the games, and kind of set that as the idea going forwards. Is like, this game is gonna have a lot of discussion about it. I mean, we still talk about World and Iceborne a lot. There's people who legitimately do not like this game still. There's people who still swear by this game up and down and all over the place. So that's kind of the point I wanted to hook with. I think we're going to be moving into the thesis section. This is something that I established with the Rise video that I thought would be a good idea to do with any of these big celebration critiques, is go immediately into an idea, or go immediately into this type of idea that right up in the very, very, very front of the video, after we've kind of introduced the game itself, we're going to introduce my opinion on the game in kind of an overall broad sense, without any justification yet. And the purpose of that, I thought, and I stand to, I think is a good idea, is from the very jump, from the get-go, let's establish what I actually think about this game, what I'm going to be aiming to break down, what I'm going to aim to be presenting, so that there's no question going forward in what my intention is going to be. So that was the whole idea behind the thesis statement idea in the Rise video, and I liked enough to keep it over and have it still be something that I work in with this one. So the main thesis statement going into World is that it was, again, kind of what we're talking about in the intro, major touchstone, probably one of the most heavily flawed Monster Hunter games when you really kind of break things down and look at it, but a game with also some dramatically high highs in terms of spectacle, in terms of gameplay. We're coming into this part right now, but there was also a big point of how World affects Monster Hunter at the point in the timeline that it comes in on, and whether or not Monster Hunter World came in at the right time, was the right changes at the right time, because there is a kind of like before World, after World, I think is typically how most people in the community kind of divvy up the timeline of Monster Hunter a little bit. Because as we're going to go into in a little bit, there's these massive formula shifts and mechanical shifts that you hit in World specifically that have carried over into the games afterwards and weren't present in the games beforehand. So there's this question of, was World the right game at the right time? You know, if you get out of Monster Hunter 4 and get out of Monster Hunter Generations and the 4th generation, and you stick with the traditional format, well, okay, where do you go? Where are the ideas from there? Would a hypothetical Monster Hunter 5 that stuck with the traditional formula, would that have been interesting? Would that have gotten tired? Would that have been something compelling? Would it have functioned? Or would it not have? And one thing I try to go into with this video is part of the reason I think World probably did come in at the right time is we're never going to get an answer to that question in a sense. Is you might be able to make an argument that maybe things got a little bit long in the tooth with Generations, as Generations was very much a kind of best of grab bag type of idea.
major issues
it was
with
this
any
big kind of
individual
festival,
Monster Hunter game, not
best
even
of
this
album
one, can
compilation type of
sometimes
game with a
be
whole
kind
bunch of asset
trivialized by the fact
reuse
that the
and
core of
repurposing
the
and retooling
experience
and
is
remastering.
always
Would a
so
hypothetical Monster Hunter
damn
5 post
good.
that point
And
still
that super
be
solid core
something
was
really interesting and using the
to
classical
most
formula, or do
people
you
that are
have
now
to kind
Monster
of
Hunter
go
fans
in this
via
more overhaul
the
type of
Monster Hunter
direction
world? So
to
that kind of
to keep the
introduction
franchise going, to keep it
captivated a lot of
interesting?
people,
We're
brought
never
a lot
really
of
going to have a
people
straight
in.
answer
Some of
because
the
the
other
old
stuff
Monster
that's
Hunter games were
problematic
never
world
wholly
kind of
allowed
falls
to
off the
get
wayside.
lame,
Now,
honestly.
I'm not trying
There
to
was
say
never a
that
point of
people who
desperation
love and
where
love
the
the
franchise
world
really
were
felt like it
blind,
needed that
stupid,
major
forced to like
overhaul.
something that was
But at the same
popular.
time,
Nah,
you know,
nothing-
if you
nothing
have
like
a
that. You can
more
like things that are flawed.
big grand
Fine. You can
compilation
love
type
things
of
that are
thing,
flawed. I'm saying that I
is the
understand
writing
why
on the
Monster Hunter
wall
World got
at that
its
point?
huge initial
Or is it not?
applause right when it first came out, despite the fact that it does have problems. And I think it also
Let's
explains why a
see. I
few
think we're
select
running down
people
the thesis
really
right
kinda
now. I
don't
think
like
we'll
World, because they've been around Monster Hunter for a while. They know that World
let
has
it go
its problems,
past.
and they're not so much a fan of the fact that World is the big, famous, popular one, since there are some objectively better put together Monster Hunter games. Now, as for
That
my
was
point
something
that
interesting to
World
consider,
might have
was
been
other
exactly
people's
soft reboot of
perspectives.
Monster
There
Hunter
is
at the
a
time it was
population
created. I have to
online
emphasize the word
that
might.
very
The
much
classic
does
formula
not
of
like
Monster
how World
Hunter
operates.
didn't overstay its welcome. It was
Very much does
never
not like how it
allowed
changed
to go back.
things.
We
There's
don't
also a
know
contingent of
if
people who just
Monster Hunter 5
don't,
be a classic
who I
style
think they
game
like the modern
would have
games,
been
but they
a
don't
good
like
or
World. I
bad
think the
thing,
clutch claw is going to be a
because
big
it's
part
just
of
not
that.
what happened.
But I
It's
do
certainly
think that there
possible that
is
Monster Hunter 5
a
would have
small
struggled to
grab
come
bag
up
of
with
individuals who
compelling
have that
ideas
kind of chip
that
on their
would
shoulder
replace the
regarding
isolated
World,
battle arena
because
formula
they
that
are,
used to. They pushed the map
you know,
pretty far with how
that World
quick
was
these
kind of a
zones were
bridge
with
too
the
far
three-dimensional
for certain
aspects
individuals.
before,
As
and
much as Monster Hunter
craziness in
changes
the
and
combat
changes and
was
changes
also
and
tested
changes and
pretty
changes,
hard with the
and no
styles
singular
and the hunter arts
iteration
introduced
or
in Monster Hunter
incarnation
Generations.
of
Some more good ideas
the
very
games
likely
are
existed in this
similar
format,
remotely.
but
You know, do you kind of hit the
no
point
all-around
where with
bad
what they
or
did to
just
World, is that a
straight-out
bridge too far? For
stagnant
certain people that
ideas
it was. I
weren't
mean,
really
if
allowed
you
to
watch,
manifest
I
either.
think
Old
MH
school
Beatman does a
Monster
good
Hunter added on
job
top,
going over some of
and
this
then
stuff.
14
There
years into the
are
series' run,
places
Monster Hunter
where
decided to
changes in
reinvent
Monster Hunter have been a
itself,
bridge too
get
far for
itself
basically
out
its
there,
entire
big
history. There are
out of
people
modern
who
home consoles
I think
and
have
yeah,
thought
that
things
would
like try
do
change things
come
too
with some
much,
growing
for
pains.
change things
But
too
I'm
much. So
very glad
does
that
that make
Monster Hunter World
World
appeared
really kind
when
of
it did,
anything super
how it
different
did,
due to the
and
fact that it
never
changed around
allowed
certain
the
things with the
series
skills
to reach a
and
point
with
where
the
it
item
had
usage
to
and
be
with the
removed.
maps? And the answer
We'll
is it's
never
always going to
truly know
come
if
down
World was
to
exactly what
who
the
you're
franchise
asking.
needed at that second, and I'm glad that we never will. Because those old games
I think at this
are
point in the
all
video, we're talking
great.
about
Now, if only Capcom would
the
just
impact that
re-release
it had
a
on the
couple of those old titles
franchise
just to kind of keep them around and keep them in the market, but that's a whole
and
other
the
video
actual
I
like
actually made. Monster
change
Hunter World
around
is
in
a
the
game
franchise that
with
this
pretty
game
notable
was.
peaks and valleys. I think the second playthrough really highlighted both to me even more than the visceral original experience I had with the game when it first came
Sure.
out. And it was being
Okay, I did not mean to mean that.
updated.
I got
During
the wrong buttons up.
second playthrough,
Right,
I
okay,
was
so
showing a
yeah, I
friend
was
of
talking
mine
about the
who
second playthrough
never
that we
touched Monster
did
Hunter before,
live,
the
the Bone
amount
Boys
of time
playthroughs, and you
I
could.
had to say
This was
something
back
along
before
the
I was
lines of,
recording off of
"Yeah,
OBS
this was
directly.
his
You can tell
stupid
off of the
choice or
of the
idea,
footage quality.
concept, we
Yikes!
don't really know
But
why they
that's
did it this
super
way,
condensed,
thankfully,
man.
Rise
Downloading
fixed it,
videos off of
kinda
YouTube
have to
directly.
put up with it for
It's a
now.
big reason I
Probably
stopped
hit
doing
the
that.
double
Went with like a
digits, but
4K rip
dude,
or just
the
recording
fights and the visuals
automatically,
and the
because
music and the
I gotta
natural
tell you, if you're ever doing
environment, the
YouTube
monsters,
and you
and the set
are
building and the big
downloading
multiplayer
stuff
options,
directly
and all
off of
the close
YouTube,
calls
they're
that we
gonna
had and the big
compress it
triumphs
to
that
hell and
I had
back.
exasperated
Like
about
it
that.
is some of the stuff on VODcanic, the video quality is
Blast of
tragic.
Playing this game with my friends and my fans from
But yeah,
top to
talking about
bottom
the second
all the way
playthrough that we
through
did.
was so much fun.
Yeah, I said it right there. Yeah,
this video
incredibly fun that
is gonna
second
get into
playthrough
the
of playing it with the
nitty-gritty
guys, was starting Austin up for the first time.
We're gonna
We
try
brought
and
you
be
guys in
objective
eventually. It was a
about how
blast.
mechanics,
At the
quality
same
of
time,
life,
though,
and
playing
the
it through for the
affected
second
world overall.
time
Yeah,
did
I'm
really
not
start to show
gonna
the
be
cracks
super
even
nice
more
to this
so
game
than
in
they
a
already
couple
would
of
have on
places.
a first
But I
playthrough. Because at that point, you're kind of
almost
used to it,
there.
and
I
like
have
that
almost
initial
2,000
impact
hours in
has
this game. I have
worn
gotten
off a
to
little bit.
and beaten Fatalis on 2 different
So, so, you're going into the second playthrough and you're like, man, this game's great.
That when I'm being mean to it.
This game has
Because I adore it
problems.
enough to be
The
on
world,
fire.
there was a
So let's
number
get-
of times, I think probably I'd
Now, there's
run
a
off of
lot
fingers of
quality
saying,
life changes
yeah, I mean, this game was really, really fun and all this stuff, but this was kind of a weird thing, and they fixed that thing around the world. I feel like that was something we had to talk to Austin about a whole bunch, when Austin would be like, this is fucking stupid, and then we'd be like, yeah, it is a little stupid, but, you know, it gets better, or you kind of just have to put up with it. There was a whole lot of that. Some of it's world specific, some of it's Monster Hunter in general, and I'm not gonna put that on world too much. This one is going to be moving into the seamless map section that you get in World. I figured that this was probably going to be the best place to start when talking about how World was going to change the franchise. Tone that down a little bit more. So the reason I started with this when we're actually getting into the game analytics was this was the marketing. You know, the seamless maps, the giant environments, no more loading zones, no nothing like that. That they're all just one giant, more kind of open concept map. That was the major point in the marketing, I think. Or at the very least, it was like top 3. I mean, if you're going for like number one, it was probably like Monster Hunter, but it's coming back and it's on modern consoles at the time with modern graphics and all that kind of stuff. That might have been like the big thing mostly. But I feel like the open environments were probably like thing number 2 or thing number 3 of talking about the big selling point of someone who's coming back to Monster Hunter via World. And it was also a major part of the marketing is, hey, look at these giant environments and these like nice, big, bustling, thriving ecosystems that we're going to flesh out with all these fantasy animals that you can fight with giant swords and whatnot.
They'll just mull about for a little while, won't do anything. Set amount of time elapses.
In this part right here, we're talking a lot about the effect that loading screens have on animal behavior and what the monsters were allowed to do, weren't allowed to do in the older games, and then getting into what they're now allowed to do in World, and what kind of animations that they're allowed to have, and the behaviors that they're allowed to have, the interactions that they're allowed to have, because the whole world has to be under the assumption that it is being viewed at all times, where the older games didn't have to have that. If there wasn't a hunter in a loading zone, then that loading zone was completely and utterly unobserved, and it didn't really matter what was going on in there. Not as much, barring some things like larger monsters hunting if they had to, or just moving in between zones. Mostly they just had their inactive neutral state walking animation. They'd idle around in there for a little bit, and that was about it. With the seamless maps, what you run into is the fact that, well, now everything has to be observable all the time. Everything has to be operating under the assumption that it is observable all the time. So with that, what happens is you have monsters with more idle animations, more things. You see like Kuluyaku's up on screen right now, where he'll do like the thing with the grooming with the feathers. You'll have things like Diablo scratching the horns, and you get into more complex animations and more complex behaviors and stuff like that, where you get now the ability for monsters to move from scene to scene, from level to level, from area to area in a very fluid fashion that you couldn't do in the older games because of the way that loading screens worked, and the fact that, you know, a good chunk of the animations would be completely invisible to players if they weren't there to observe it. So this was kind of the first major point here. A big thing talking about the seamless maps is just kind of how they broadened out the ecology of the environments and of the animals, what they now allow to bring more so into the forefront. And I had a major point more towards the back end of this chunk of the video, where I go into the idea that most of this already existed for Monster Hunter before you even get into this idea of showing it in animations. You know, this stuff for monster abilities and monster behaviors and how they interacted socially and how they vied for territory and how they interacted with that territory and what they ate and where they went to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. It already existed in the background. It had already been in there. This was something that was in the developer's headspace already. But with how the older games worked, there just wasn't so much of a point for them to actually go into it and elaborate on it and show it. So I did want to kind of refute this point that world and its ecological aspect was very much up its own ass, right? That it was like, oh, like pontificating over the fact that, like, oh, look what we brought to Monster Hunter. Look at this grand ecology thing. Like, aren't we so bold and aren't we so inventive and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. This kind of idea that world invented this ecological aspect is like, no, it was always there in subtext and in background and in art books and in all this other information that you can find. You might need translations for most of it, but it is always there. It had already been there. And the advantage that the open maps provided was like, okay, well, now this doesn't have to just be subtext and background information and tertiary reading. Now this can actually be something that we can bring in and that we can show off and we can naturally incorporate into the game, and we can work it into the content using things like the tracking animations and the leaving of materials and certain idle animations and even non-idle animations where the animals are interacting off of one another. And we're going to expand how the boss monster's hunting is going to operate and stuff like that. And like Wilds even goes even more into some of these ideas as well.
To create an experience that instead embraces and shows you those details excitedly.
That was the major point number one I wanted to go into. Yeah, we're going into the ecology cutscenes right here with, like, this is stuff that they used to only... This is a turf war now. Like, this is a turf war in world. Granted, the animation's not quite as long, and they can kind of be a little bit more cinematic and a little bit more experimental with certain things with a pre-rendered cutscene that doesn't have to operate in engine. But I mean, like, we just have this stuff now functioning and operating. And you, like I said, because looking up here, we're up at this very kind of top cliff precipice area. We're looking down into one zone, which looks down. Like, we can see a good, like, 3 or 4 zones. Like, you can even look into the lava caverns if you're looking in the background right there. But yeah, no, you just have Tigrex and Bonboro right now. So if you get into the older Monster Hunter games, they're not even doing like that much. But if you get into the older Monster Hunter games, the two of them would have essentially zero relation to one another. They'd have zero recognition of one another. They'd just be doing their own thing. When you get into world and you get into the fact that, okay, now these animals need to, they've chased themselves off into the same zone, which is hilarious. But you're getting into this idea that, well, okay, now they need to be observable all the time. So now they need to, you have the turf wars, right? But they also need to be standoffish. You know, if they're roaming into the same territory together, they might not necessarily come to blows, but they're going to do the kind of standoff thing where they're going to be roaring at each other and kind of like making motions at one another, trying to intimidate one another, trying to get the other one to back off, and etc., etc. You kind of need to have that now, because otherwise what you're going to have is someone's going to be looking in from a distance, and you're just going to see the monster idling around, not doing anything, no animations, no nothing, and that is going to completely shatter the illusion that this is a functioning environment, that you have these animals who are interacting off of one another, who are learning off of one another, who are building off of one another and have these social structures and social hierarchies. If they have zero recognition of one another, zero recognition with anything, then the illusion gets shattered. The advantage that the older games had was they were able to maintain the illusion extraordinarily well, because you could only ever be observable of one region at once, and it either had an encounter within it or it didn't have an encounter within it. So that's actually something that was very interesting to me to consider when going into this video and actually trying to analyze how the open maps functioned. Is in a certain way, the older Monster Hunter games are actually less limited, if you think about it, than how the newer ones have to
Really
be with how their systems operate.
Some of the development time and resources
Excuse me.
went into all the little bells and whistles could have perhaps gone
I'm just
into
gonna
something
drink
else
water
more
because there's gonna be a
substantive.
lot of talking today.
Maybe. I ain't gonna act like I have a perfect understanding of major
Right.
video game
Yeah. So
My
maintenance
point
of
is,
illusion.
World is more showy than classic Monster Hunter. It's more of an experience.
Let's see what
It
I'm
wants
talking
to
about
be
right here.
Immersive and grand and awe-inspiring and captivating to the senses. And then you do the awesome fights. The classics are snappier. Yes, you also have cool stuff.
Right. Okay. So this is talking about actual pros and cons and going into whether or not the seamless maps in a more kind of cold analytical sense actually add anything, because you do have all the environmental detailing, which you kind of have to have now, and that's really nice.
Really aren't going to impress you.
What actually happens in terms of the gameplay? And to be perfectly honest, as much as I did like the open maps and I did like the, what did I say, like the encapsulation of the senses and all that kind of stuff, and really kind of just kind of diving headlong into this environment, if you're looking at from a more pragmatic gameplay type of sense, really what's happening, I'm sorry if this is going to make any weird noises, I'm just adjusting the microphone, getting a little bit closer to my mouth. Looking at it honestly, the older experience is a lot snappier. It's a lot more expedient because, well, there's just so much less movement. Like, you know what zone the monster's going to spawn in. You go to the camp, you go there, you might go with a paintball, you chase it around. Like, the only thing would really be if you have a certain map that's not built particularly well with a monster that is in a spawn point that is very, very far away from the load-in, and there's not really a lot of natural pathways that get you to that monster spawn point in any snappy kind of fashion. That's probably the only thing that you can really put over the newer games, is that they have some modes of transport, as well as having the camp system.
World is still a pretty,
but World kind of wants you to just like take everything in and revel in it and have you just kind of sit and enjoy the spectacle of the whole experience. And
so how do the developers deal with this?
They want to kind of create a more experiential type of idea, whereas some of the older games, it very much felt like game. It's not, we're not, like, the experience is there if you really want to sit and just, like, live in it and pay attention to it and look for it. World doesn't really let you look for it as much. I mean, there is some looking into it if you want to go off of the beaten trail and go into the non-combat zones and go looking into those sections, but for the most part, you don't really have that option to go into the immersion, because the immersion's just the entire thing for the most part, honestly. Like, you are going to be fully, like, drenched in this environment. Like, you really kind of can't escape from it. There is none of those gameplay elements. Like, there is that, those loading zones aren't there anymore. You know, the most you get is maybe like a wire bug section here and there where you have to do the inputs, but even there's very rarely a section where, like, you have to do wire bugs to proceed. There's usually, even then, there's still like a vine section to climb, or like legends you can climb and stuff like that. That artificial nature is not there as much, but the advantage of having that artificial nature with the loading zones is, like, you can kind of keep the game is going, right? You know, I'd say there's probably definitely this kind of group of people who might not be up on the fact that, like, oh, we're being, like, more artsy, we're being more stylistic, you know, we're trying to create not just a video game, we're trying to create an experience, you know, trying to be like, I don't know, I don't think World goes like that far. World, I don't think, feels like pretentious about, like, what it wants to do.
And if you find a map that has
I like this bit
design and or a lot of climbing and or monster spawn zones that are particularly far away from base camp, runbacks to a fight on that kind of map after a feint in the classic games can
He's shoving my finger up against my television.
Frustrating. Now, generally, you're not.
Yeah, all my homies hate the Arctic Ridge. I'm sorry, that map is not good. It's just not very good. It might be one of the worst ones I've ever made.
initiating a hunt properly.
Someone has to. Someone has to think that
So, speaking of climbing around,
someone has to think that the
another one
maps
of
are
Monster
too, are,
Hunter's
that
newest lengthier pursuits are these
some map
lovely
has to be the
devices
worst one.
called wedge beetles.
I got my
You can
thoughts
aim
crossed
at
for a
them
moment
and
there.
fire your slinger
There has
towards
to be
them,
a worse map,
grapple
and
them,
it may
and
very
then
well
you
be
can
the
use
Arctic
that
Ridge.
momentum to swing yourself across portions of the map or up
Talking
to higher
about
elevations.
right,
There's
so
a
this is
number of
going
these
into
scattered
traversal
all
and
over the
traversal
place
options to
on every
actually get
map,
around
which
and deal with the
eliminate
fact
need
that
to
the
climb
maps
on
are
some
the size that they are.
Now, the wedge beetles don't completely overrule every singular patch of vines.
I see that
in the whole game
donation
and make
from you,
vines
Mr. Dino Dan.
pointless,
Thank you
but
very
the
much.
wedge beetles can shred a lot of time
Happy
and
third
endurance
anniversary
off of a
for the
few prolonged climbing sections. It's a way
funny
for
script
the
and image
developers to
YouTube. In all
still make
seriousness, your
maps
channels
that
helped
have
me
very large
in a
increases of
bleak time of
elevation
my
that are
life,
by the
and me
nature of
earning
this
some
game
amazing
unbroken,
friends in
while
this
not
chat
making
because of
those
it. Thank you,
climbing
Connor. Well,
sections
thank
the
you
most
very much.
tedious, repetitive,
I am
dreading
glad
segments
to
of your
entertain
runs. The
and
inclusion of wedge
be
beetles takes the final
helpful to those
descent
that need
into
it
Coral Highlands
and
turns
provide
what
something
should have
that's
been a god-awful
makes the day a
slog
little bit
and
easier and a
instead
little bit
makes
more
this kinda
entertaining.
cool Spider-Man
So I'm glad I can
zipping
provide
around
that for
segment.
you.
It's really satisfying to get the
So
timing
getting
down.
back into this,
There's
so
still a couple of
right, so this is talking a lot about the
obnoxious,
traversal
very
options. So this is going to
present
go
times here
into
and there,
things
though, that I
like
wish had a wedge
the
beetle.
tail
Like I
raider
said
system.
earlier,
It's going to
there's a
go
couple of
into the
segments
wedge
where
beetles
you're
and
gonna
the
be
climbing
stuck
systems.
around a lot.
And it's also going to
another
talk a
option
lot
World
about the
gives you,
camps. I
and
think this is
is
the
tail
part where I
raiders.
talk about the
I'm gonna
camps
be
the
honest,
most.
this is just a beta test for
The
Power
camps do
Rangers.
come back. I
This
think
was a
they're
system
also
that got
in the
added in Iceborne, and it's a little bit
quality of life section quite a bit as well. But oh yeah, this is going to be showcasing the tail raider system is just it really isn't stellar, is it? We've come a long way from this system. Yeah, no, you'd make a whistle and they're trying to do something immersive with the system, right? They are trying to do like, oh, this animal that you summoned, he has to smell for tracks and he has to like pick up on the monster's scent and whatnot, and you're like, brother, why am I on the back of this animal and to like move faster if he's not going to move faster? Like, what the fuck is the point? You know, it's like, what am I doing? Like, I need to be, I'm on here to move faster and you're not moving. And the fact that it was completely on rails, I mean, that a little bit of that is forgivable considering the fact that this was tacked on in Iceborne. But yeah, no, this system was not great, was it? It really was not anything fantastic. And now we've gone, I mean, it's kind of funny. We're almost like back to having them on rails again with the Palamute. Or with, I'm not going to, don't slander the Palamute. It's the fucking Sacred. The Palamute's better than the Sacred, Connor. Come on. But yeah, no, so I wanted to talk about the fact that if you have maps that are going to be this size, well, okay, that's going to add to traversal time. Like, that's going to be another thing, is like, do the hunts get longer due to the fact that there's all this extra traversal time? And there's definitely some of that. The camps help for the most part. There's a couple of maps where I think the camp distribution is not as good as it should have been. Like the Ancient Forest has some very odd choices. I think the Coral Highlands probably could have used another one. This one, the Wildspire, had good placements. The Eldritch Recess one was fine. I thought the Hoarfrost did a really good job with its camp placement because it had like 6 of them on there. But yeah, no, there's a whole thing of like, I kind of almost wish I went into this a little bit more when I was writing this video, is like, you also do have to remember, there were some maps, well, I did kind of bring it up, making fun of the Arctic Ridge, but I could have made more of an argument and more of a point of it. I was like, well, let's not forget, right? There's some traversal in the older games that sucks ass. Like, I get the fact that World is a pretty big, pretty chunky game with some pretty big chunky maps, and there can be a lot of running and a lot of tracking around and a whole lot of time spent with that, especially if you don't have an area where you have wire bugs to deal with certain things or climbing sections, or you don't want to deal with the tail raider system. But at the same time, you do at least have the warp camps, which can help a lot. And you have some maps in the older games that just, like, the traversal's just not good. There are some maps, some of the older ones especially, from the original game, from first generation, quite linear, honestly, where some zones are like a whole good, like, 4, maybe even 5 loading zones at the minimum away from base camp. So, this honestly, this could have been a point in World's defense a little bit more than it was even made in this video. It's like, well,
combat.
Traversal in some of those older ones wasn't pitch perfect either. You know, I still... part of me still kind of feels like I don't like desert maps in general because of the second generation desert. I'm like, no, but I like most of the desert maps. But for some reason, I have like this kind of like thought in the back of the brain. It's like, no, you don't. These ones they're big and they're tedious and they suck ass and they're boring. I'm like, I think that might just be the second generation one.
But did anyway. And you don't have to go to all these places at all. You can just go exploring for fun. It's cool.
Let me see what I'm doing.
Digging around and trying to find these little secret spots. And the last lovely little benefit from World introducing seamless maps is that
right. Okay, so that was talking about
overdue death of monsters getting stuck in the loading zone.
Oh, we're talking about being stuck in the loading zone?
So many
yeah, I tried to fish for good footage for that. Honestly, I probably should have fought something that was more... I should have deliberately gone back into GU and started trying to fish for stuff like Gravios or Rajang or something like that. It would have been especially really nice if I had my the profile that I used for Freedom Unite footage up and running at that point, because I could have used like the older volcano maps. I have some footage, or at least had, I might not have it anymore, of if you ever played the old volcano, like the MH1 volcano, that map had areas where it's just like there's a rocky outcropping out in the middle of the lava rivers that the hunter has zero access to, and especially Rajang would like to back hop either into the rivers of lava or onto the rocky outcroppings off of it and just sit there and fire laser beams. Gravios did it a whole lot too. And yeah, that's not even so much in the loading zones, but you do get those in the loading zones as well. I mean, everybody's hit those where like, I can't pursue the monster anymore because he's just sitting in the back corner in the loading zone. And there's no way I can hit it anymore, because if I go in for an attack and I overstep even the slightest, then I am just gonna go through the loading zone and like, okay, well now I have to bait the guy out of it and move him around, and okay, let's actually do a melee attack, please. But then they don't do a melee attack for the next 35 seconds. And that's not a problem that exists anymore. Honestly, if you remember from when we were playing World, when the monster goes into the transitionary areas, it was a boon to us more than, like, we had a whole joke about like, oh, welcome to the hallway, bitch. I bet if you watch those streams, you probably remember pretty well, to be perfectly honest, of like, you get the monster in the hallway, and then you ragdoll it off into a wall, you set a health booster down so you're not getting knocked out of the health booster, and you just sit in the booster in the hallway with the monster, and we just beat the brakes off of them. And like, honestly, the monster getting stuck in the loading zone is kind of a benefit sometimes, especially in this game. The health booster especially, because they can't throw you out of it. Like, they bat you into a wall, you're still in the health booster, and you could just caveman the monster at that point. It's so funny.
I believe to be well executed. The details, exploration, and loving artistic craftsmanship have a
right, this is something I didn't even really cover in the commentary section, but yeah, one thing I definitely picked up on, which was kind of something that I was kind of interesting to discover when I was talking about the seamless maps when running through this, is like, oh, I mean, I brought this up a little bit ago. It was like, World can't hide anything in its level design anymore. Like, you lose some aspect of the scope and the scale for sure.
I feel like I have to
but at the same time, quite interestingly, World is actually more limited in its map design and its world building and whatnot, because it's not allowed to hide anything anymore. You can't put anything behind those loading zones and imply distance anymore. You have to show everything. And that was a point that I found, like, I didn't even think of that in my initial playthrough. Like, up until when I started writing this review for the game, I was like, that's interesting, actually. That's really interesting to consider. The fact that, like, you know, you'd think sometimes with newer technologies, like, oh, like, we can now kind of breeze past this issue, and that issue, and we can breeze through that limitation, we can get around that thing, and that kind of, like, breeds an almost sense of non-creativity because your obstacles are being taken away. But when you get into something like Worlds,
primary prerogative. But I will make
you actually have more
sets that do
limitations
make big numbers.
because
I also have a decent
the
enough
older
balance
games
of
have
places
this
to
advantage where they
focus.
do not
I
have to have the
most
burden of
doing
explaining
my own thing and
how
just kinda throwing
their
stuff
maps
I love
work.
making sets that
Honestly,
deliberately
you know,
cover the
like,
abilities of a
you
certain
get
monster.
some
I
stuff
create
with
a few
background
that are
work
built specifically for
and
certain
some
phases of the
implied
monster. For example, I have a set that is
upcoming
built
shifts
deliberately for breaking
in
down CR-VODcanic headpiece.
artwork or
when that's
tone.
done, I'd go and then switch over to
You go
something
through a
else.
loading
I
zone,
also
and it's
like
like,
making
yeah, no, it's
probably
completely different. Like, you
admittedly
went a such
really
and such
bad
amount of
niche
distance,
sets
and
built around
right now
skills and
it's super
playstyles
different.
that aren't even that good.
And
sometimes I just make
honestly,
goofy
in
meme
some
sets built
cases,
around
in a
super
couple of
specific
maps, it can
playstyles.
almost be
One that I
jarring because the
loved and just
tonal shift will
never
happen
got back
a little
around
bit
to
too
updating
radically,
was a set I
honestly.
called Grapple Bump.
And
Basically,
World
the
just
entire point of
physically
the set is to
can't
spam
do that.
points
World
on the
has
block
to
counter
show
against
everything.
monsters that predominantly
And that
attack
led
with their
to
heads,
advantages
teeth,
and
horns.
disadvantages
Then I
in
have
the
quick
fact
draw,
that
punch and draw
sometimes
garbage to try and spam
entire
no
zones of a
damage,
map will be a
knock
little
out
bit
monsters
more
with special
samey due to the
grapple
fact that they
attack.
have
Super fun against stuff like
less
Time
distance that
Wrestling.
they
I
have
always
to
meant
work
to
with, and they
improve
can
that
just
one
move
with
around a
stuff
whole
like
lot
Rush
less. But at the same
Pokemon
time,
and
when you get
Frostbite
something,
very
say,
uncommon.
like
So, bear
the
in mind,
art direction
I
that exists
completely
in the
understand that
Wildspire
some of the
Waste,
RNG
or stuff that
elements
happens
and
with the
skill
Ancient
amounts are
Forest.
particularly annoying for some people who
Well,
very
now
much
that's
care
almost
about
actually kind of
pinpoint
more
specificity
impressive than some
of
of the best
their
work than the
builds.
older
And I'll
games could
get into
provide,
specifics
because
why
you
some
were
world
able to
systems
give
do
an
and don't, but
experience
was set
that
for me. But,
was
like I said,
very
let's
in-depth,
build
very
before giving
elaborate,
in
had a
certain
lot of
places
diversity
and
to
others
it,
might.
was able to
So,
communicate a
I
whole bunch of
think this may
ideas,
very
and
well
you
be
weren't
the second
able
most
to
impactful
hide
change that
any
World
of
brought
it. You
to
had to
Monster
show the
Hunter.
entire
Less advertised
journey.
than the map stuff, but still pretty huge. The entire passive skill system got completely
So this is moving into the
revamped,
skill system.
and
I'm going to
it
take another drink
has
of water, and
and
I'm
will
going to listen
very
to where I
likely
am.
continue to be the default. For a quick comparison, in the classic Monster Hunter games, passive skills were granted to
right.
you if you could acquire a
Okay.
set amount of points.
Talking
points
about
at
the
skill.
old
Many
armor
skills could have
menu
higher levels
system.
to them if you passed a second and sometimes
Wow,
a
is it better?
third threshold of points.
I make a
Getting
point of
10
it in the
points for
video.
attack up grants you attack up small.
This is
That
talking a
gives
little
you
bit more
flat boost
about
to
the
your raw
actual.
damage. You bump that up to 15
This
points,
was
and you get
something,
yourself
you know,
attack up
honestly,
immediately.
sometimes I
It's
write
even
my
bigger
scripts
boost
in
to
a
your
way, it
raw
was like,
damage. And then
if
20
my
points to get attack up
parents
large, bumps up your raw
were
damage
like
even further than
going to
that.
my
These
like
other
my
skill points that
my
bypass
grandparents
or
or
don't
like
add up
my
to a
my
skill
aunts or
activation
uncles are
threshold
like,
are
look at
useless
this
and
thing that
contribute
Connor
towards
made.
nothing.
I asked
In
this
Monster
I
Hunter
asked
World,
this question in my
every
head is like,
individual
if
point you
if
have
my
towards a
proud
skill
parents were to
grants
show the
you that
relatives
passive skill.
what
To
I
compensate,
was
skills that
making,
previously had two
would my
tiers to
scripts be
them
written
may
in
now
a way
have
where
only one
someone
to
who had
5
no
or
idea about
7
anything to do with
tiers.
Monster Hunter, would
The
they have
only
any
way
idea
for
what the
skill
hell I'm
points to be
talking
worthless
about?
for you is if you have more points
So
towards
going
a
into
skill
this
than it
section
has
right here, it's like,
tiers,
well,
or
okay,
the
let's
skill is
probably
just utterly
actually
useless for the weapon you're
move my
running.
chair around a little bit there.
Additionally, in
Let's
classic Monster Hunter,
probably
some
actually
decorations
kind of
and
just do a
armor pieces
brief
subtract
little
skill
touch
points
up
from your
on how the
total.
skill
There are
system
even inverted
used to
forms
work,
of
how the
certain
point
skills
system
that can do
worked,
things like reduce
how
your raw attack.
negative skills
The world
worked and
has
skill
no
tiers worked, and
such
let's
limit.
actually
Even with some of these skills having
introduce
their amount
things
of
here
skills
so that we
drastically
can set up a point
reduced,
of
practically only
compare
one
and
skill point
contrast
to
when
access
talking
a
about
skill.
how the
All
new
armor
skill
pieces
systems
have
work.
built-in
I mean,
skills.
honestly,
All
in terms of
armor weapons
just
have decorations
an
for it.
essay, I think
There are
it's
still
probably
charms
important to
in
have
this game,
both
meaning
anyway,
that the
but that
sheer
is something
amount
that
of
does get
passive
taken
skills
into
that you can have
consideration
in World and
when
Iceborne
I'm writing
than
these scripts. Is
any
like,
previous
I
Monster
don't
Hunter
want to
game
talk, I
that
don't
isn't
want to
Frontier
infantilize,
is
but at the same
enormous.
time,
So, let's
I
tackle
want to
that
take into
issue first.
consideration
It's
the
good
fact
thing
that,
or
like,
bad thing that you have so
all
many
right,
skills
well,
in World
would
compared to previous games.
does this script
Is
assume
this
that you just
good for
in
sets,
some
or
points
is
you
this
do have to
worse?
kind of
In
assume
World and
that the
Iceborne
people listening to you
specifically,
know what
I
you're
personally
talking
think
about?
having the
Because
ability to
this
have
was something I was talking
skills
about
on
with the
your build
intro,
is
is you
pretty
can't just
nice.
be
We'll
like,
talk about them
this is the
in depth
history of
later.
blankety
Biggest
blankety
reason
blank,
probably
and
don't
this is
mind
every
skill
piece of
bloats is because
information that had
monsters
anything to
only
do with
seem
it
to inflate
in this
monster
lead
health
up,
values
etc.,
by
etc., and so on and so on and so
depending on
forth.
the monster
You can't
and the
do
quest
that.
type. And World
At the
does
same
not
time,
have a
you have
quest
to
system
set
which
things up in a
celebrates
way
level
and kind of go
investigations
into
that
something,
gradually
especially with
increases
mechanical
the monster's
analysis. So, like,
stats. You
all
don't
right, I
need
need
to
to actually kind of set up my point of comparison and my precedent here so that I can actually make an argument and have facts and evidence that I can stand up against one another so that I can actually make a point and not just make a whole bunch of proclamations and assume that the audience is going to agree with me, because I think that's how you get very bad analysis. Honestly, is when you just start making points without thinking of a certain word.
This is awesome for me because, as I said earlier, I really enjoy and find a lot of
it is lost on me.
sets built to resist,
But without any kind of means of backing up what you're going to say.
do that without compromising too hard on the damage front.
There are some essayists out there that I've observed that they just kind of state things for a fact. And I state things for a fact that I get wrong as well. I try to be very careful about it.
whatever a specific fight calls for, or whatever I just kind of want to slot in. Sometimes I just like having some comfy skills on hand. Having that one
right, okay, so talking about some of the advantages of having the ability to have more skills on the new sets with how they operate now, because obviously there's just way more room, because now you're going with these singular instance values and you're not going off of the numerical system. Honestly, something that would have been really interesting to go into, not that this wasn't a thing in the older Monster Hunter games, but having like investment levels and fall off levels in different skill tiers and how that operates in world, because you can kind of get lured into certain traps of being like, well, do I yawn, sorry, of do I actually want to have this skill maxed out? Like, this is something that we're going into with, say, like Burst in Monster Hunter World, or Monster Hunter Wilds rather, is like, well, do you actually want to have full burst? Because, like, that top initial level is a nice, just raw and elemental buff on top of that. And, like, are you going to start to progressively get less and less for your dollar the more and more you invest into certain skills? That is a thing that exists with tiered skills in the older games, but it's much more a thing that exists now with the multi-tiered skills that you have in this game. Is like, okay, how much is it actually worthwhile to be max investing into certain skills? That could have been something I would have covered even more. Right now we're talking about the UI changes and the menu systems. Yeah, I mean, it's just, this system was not great. It was not set up particularly well. The new blacksmith is just so much better.
And then once you have a set that you like, you can't even check your overall statistics in any one of those shopping menus, so then you gotta leave the blacksmith again, open up your character stats menu.
I thought this editing was pretty funny, just overlaying menu system on menu system. Because, I mean, this is what it is, right? Because, oh my god, it's just, it's so messy. All the armor pieces are in different menus, and the skills don't have built-in descriptions, and you gotta tab over to the different skills instead of just tapping a button to bring up the skill information. And then you can't even see, like, what charms you're rocking, what decorations you're rocking. You're just looking at the individual armor pieces, and then you actually gotta, like, go back to the box and see what you actually have for decorations and charms and talismans and that kind of stuff, what you actually have in the box. And you gotta go back and forth and out of this menu and into that menu and out of that one. And this one is just like, everything is right here. It's organized by columns and it's organized by rows. And everything's right there, and it's all on one singular menu, all 5 pieces of every single set. You can look at how the skills are going to work off of each other, and if you organize them in such and such a way, you're going to be able to see what skills you have and what places and blah, 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 blah. This was something, especially, I feel like as I, the more I play older Monster Hunter and have the context of newer Monster Hunter, the more I have progressively come to hate, just hate the menu systems in the older one. Like, they have only gotten worse with time, as far as I'm concerned. And I was pretty anti them in this video. I can assure you, it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse. Oh, I hate the old system so much.
In only like 1 or 2 very easily accessible menus. Now, you might be sitting there with your arms folded and a pout upon your face, saying, Connor, I liked the obtuse skill system of the old Monster Hunter games. There's a greater sense of planning and knowledge and satisfaction derived from the need to keep track of all my individual pieces, making sure that I'm doing the proper...
This was something here's the thing, when I'm really kind of harping on the way the older games used to be, or I would really try to harp on a certain system, I do try to make an effort to understand why someone would like it, right? Why someone would actually enjoy systems that I find flawed. I think with some of the older games with systems like this, especially with the menus that they have for gear working, I can see why somebody would find the older system endearing. I could see why some people would think that, you know, like having to manually track how the old system worked and really kind of learn what they had, what they had access to, and all that stuff would be fun. You know, there was, I think I mentioned it in this video, but there was a point where I went back and played GU for a little while. I'm like, I want to make a set for this. So I actually, like, I pulled up a note tab in my phone, and in that note tab in my phone, I was writing up, like, well, I want this armor piece, and I want this armor piece, and I want this armor piece. It's going to give me that much in that one, and that much in that skill, and that much in that skill. I'm going to add those totals up, and that's where I'm going to be. It's going to have this many slots. Like, I was actually, like, physically writing down in my phone what I was going to need to make this set that I wanted. I'm like, this is kind of fun. You know, sometimes you hit those blockers, you hit those obstacles and whatnot. You're like, this is actually kind of fun. And I won't deny to the people who would enjoy the older menu systems, like, all right, well, if you had fun with it, I can understand the perspective. I'm just saying that, like, man, dude, the menus are just better.
The fun challenge that can be found here is
that's something I try to do just in general with a lot of this stuff, is just trying to make sure that my language is nice and diplomatic. Because I think when you have language that's nice and diplomatic, what you can do is you can make you can speak confidently and make, you know, make assertions and, you know, not try to just kind of cower behind, like, oh, this is just an opinion, this is just an opinion. Like, no, you can, like, be assertive, you can be confident in the takes you have, but at the same point, you can get things wrong or kind of, like, leave out certain bits of information. And, like, I feel like if you're diplomatic in your language, you don't have to be a coward in your language, but you have to be diplomatic in your language. And you go for that, then, like, people, if you do get things wrong, people are going to be a lot more polite about it. I really try not to have much of a pompous tone when in my writing or in my speaking, as I think even if you are smart enough and right enough to be pompous and be overconfident and to be able to talk down, if you do get to that point, I think your issue that you're going to run into is then from there you're going to be hyper scrutinized, because people are going to want to be waiting for you to get something wrong. And I try not to put myself into that position. You'll notice that I use a lot of very negotiable, very diplomatic language, especially when I am really trying to go hard in on a point. I don't want to be a dickhead about it, and I also don't want to be a coward about it who's just going to be like, this is just my opinion, dude. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. Just let me have my opinion. I don't like it when essayists do that. I think it's kind of weak, honestly. So, yeah, usually the tactic I go for is caveats and anecdotes and concessions and a whole bunch of that kind of thing to kind of let someone who would disagree with me know, it's like, no, I get you, but like, here's what I'm bringing to the table. And if I get something wrong, I get something wrong. Like, I've got plenty of things wrong in my work, and the result usually is that when I get something wrong, the people who correct me on things have to correct me on things, usually very polite about it, where I think if you're, like, abrasive in your confidence, then you kind of hit the point where people start to prey on your downfall a little bit, and I don't want to do that.
Way less than RNG on an individual charm. A god tier charm in a classic game and in Rise and Sunbreak as well.
I think this part we're talking about
really good skill. A lot of points in
the decoration system and the charm system.
Then some extra points towards another good skill, and as well as some open decoration slots. Rolling for a really, really good charm, especially banking on a specific
all right. So this is talking about some of the differences that you find in set building when it comes to this game versus some of the older games. This is the first one that goes from RNG talismans into RNG decorations instead. Not a popular change. Wilds irons things out a whole bunch with them, for sure.
Hundreds if you're playing long enough.
The RNG deco system in this game is a little rough. It's a little rough. The distribution is not particularly well done. I know that the more infamous ones are especially attack plus ones, and I think, what is it, Mighty Bow is the other one that is particularly infamous from what information I did. This one I really had to kind of think about, because we're kind of getting into this area, and it'll get brought up a lot. It gets brought up a lot in my channel when looking into this kind of stuff. stuff is like I asserted a whole bunch. It's like I am never someone who's like, oh man, dude, like I need to get the best numbers. Like if I'm not getting the best numbers, like oh my god, what am I doing? And I need to rip apart these game mechanics incessantly until I get my perfect numbers. I need to get the best set possible. That is not me. It's never gonna be me. I do not care. I could not give a shit. But at the same time, like there are people who do give a shit, and I have to take into consideration that there are people who do give a shit about that kind of thing, and I do need to be, at the very least, honest about the blockings that come in at that level of set building, even if I don't super care. And that was an interesting thing to think about and write for and make concessions for and elaborate. Is like when you're talking about the RNG decoration systems and the reason why it is flawed and the reasons why some people really wouldn't like it, I think it is the responsibility of myself as an analyst and as a reviewer and as I hesitate to say journalist because that's almost a slur at this point in time, but someone like at that level, you kind of do need to have that level of integrity and like be a kind of voice for people who give a shit about mechanics that you don't necessarily care about. I can tell you, especially in the first playthrough of World and Iceborne, I didn't give a crap about the RNG decorations. Not that much. There would be a couple of points of times like, well, I wish I had this, but like I don't have this, so we're gonna just do that instead. And like, whatever. What the fuck ever. Who cares?
And foremost, I do not care if it makes I do not care if it builds up a bad habit.
This is going into some of the QOL stuff, but yeah, that was something where myself personally, like the RNG decoration system is the RNG decoration system. Like whatever. Who cares? Was it in my head? It's like, is it that different from the talismans? Like, I don't know. This is also probably the first game where I really was looking into like set building as well. No, I wasn't even particularly good at it in World either, but it was the first one where I was like legitimately any interest in it. But yeah, no, it was something very interesting to write for. Like, I didn't really care. This did not negatively affect my experience, especially in the first playthrough, almost whatsoever. Really, I made do with what I was given. I was given what I was given. I made the sets that I made. I had fun. I was able to beat monsters in perfectly fine times for someone who's at my skill level and at my playability level, which wasn't anything crazy, but like I could do it just fine and had a blast playing the game. But when you get into the analytics, you have to set that aside. You know, you have to set that aside. At least I think you do. I think you have to be a voice for these people who have things that they care about that you don't necessarily care about. Because, I mean, it's just the nature. You have to be analytical about the nature of the game, right? So you don't have to necessarily say, like, I hate this now because I don't think that the set building is the best ever. But, like, well, here's a clear and obvious point of contention when it comes to the set building for such and such a reason, and you have to articulate that.
Being able to do this harms much of anything. Yeah, you can swap to a stronger build mid-fight if you want to, but
so I think we're talking more about the QOL section at this point. We're past the changes that's in the skill system.
Monster matchup you got going on, or you kind of just want to fight this monster with something else in the moment. You're more than free to just go do that.
Right. Okay. So this is going to be talking about some of the conveniences that the camp provides you. There's a lot of quality of life in these games, and this was one where what I needed to think about for this one was quality of life means a whole bunch of different things to different people. Again, this is a point of perspective and whatnot. Some people are going to want there to be as many obstacles as possible. Some people like it when their games are very obtusely designed. They enjoy it when they have a lot of restrictions. They have a lot of limitations where they are put a whole bunch of obstacles in their way to actually do the things that they want to do.
use thunder damage with
Some people really, really like that. Some people don't. Some people, they just want an easy breezy. They want an expedient system that just like, it does what it does what it's supposed to do, and all that stuff, right? So quality of life means a lot of different things to different people.
It also gives the developers some room to make their monsters more complicated.
And people are going to have different takes on it. Again, we're going for more of an analytical type of thing here. So the question is, well, okay, they made a change. What does that change domino effect into? Like, what? That's kind of the thing. What actually happens in a broader sense beyond just the change that occurs? So, of course, in here we are talking about things like being able to eat out on a hunt, being able to go and restock while out on a hunt, being able to swap your gear around while out on a hunt, a bunch of stuff like that. A lot of changes and alterations and minimalizations in the pre-hunt prep work, and shifting a lot of stuff being able to be done out in the field. Excuse me real quick.
Camp for an extra couple of seconds to get that rectified. You can also eat a second time at camp to get some extra buffs.
A little bit of phlegm build up in the throat right there. I apologize. But yeah, so this was something where I had to look at the games and be like, all right, what does this do? A big thing that I found was a lot of these.
I don't know if I like being able to stack food skills.
A lot of these really kind of set up a good chunk of elements of forgiveness. One thing I do definitely think happened is a lot of changes were made for the sake of the expeditions. Item restocking especially, I think kind of had to do, at least somewhat had to do with the expeditions. I can't say I can wholly chalk it up to being a thing having to do with the expeditions, but if you're gonna have these effectively these game modes where you're doing these endless huntathons where you can just stick out in the environments and go and go and go and go and go and go and go, well, if you're not gonna have any kind of restocking, well, then you're gonna bump into like a little bit of a problem here where like a dude's only really gonna be able to do maybe like 2 hunts or something like that. And then he's gonna need to just go gathering for new materials. Yeah, there's Odia Bataras. So I had a feeling with like their big new open maps and everything, and as the expedition system, and eventually like what they were gonna do with the guiding lands for the end game, I had a feeling that they were gonna be like that they probably thought somewhere along the lines of, well, we're probably going to need to implement a system where you can actually do item restocking and gear switching so that, you know, you can actually make use of these systems. Otherwise, you're just going to do investigations and nothing but investigations. You know, what would be the point otherwise, honestly?
Of course, in the midst of a pitched battle, the tension and danger and threat still exists for sure in World and Iceborne. World is not a game that is devoid.
Alright, so this is getting into item restocking. Item restocking, I think, is probably the most damaging bit of quality of life that we've received. Again, this one is loaded up with a whole bunch of anecdotes, right? Of like, well, thinking about it, you still die because a monster can trap you in a combo, even with the fact that you can restock. Like, it's not like you're getting hit and then healing and then hit and then healing and then hit and then healing, and then you like break off in the middle of the fight, go back to camp, you get all your mega potions back, and you go back for it, right? I don't think a lot of people actually do that. I think in execution and in practice, I don't believe there's a whole lot of people who's like the second that they're running out of mega potions, they are boop, they're off to camp, they're going to get more mega potions, and they're nabbing them and coming back. It's usually, if you do go to camp to restock, it is almost always between intervals where the monster is changing zones. And
you also get introduced to both the guiding lands and expeditions.
Yeah, no, it's usually stuff like that. But at the same time, the major point that I went at is just this complete and utter erosion of fear that you have. It's like playing Frontier because at that point, I was playing a lot of Frontier on stream. there's a lot of very intense moments where, like, you have 10 potions, you have 10 mega potions, you have enough combines to make another batch of 10, you got maxes, maybe you brought life powders.
When you consume an item, you can still move around and even
excuse me.
heavily reduced speed at any time.
But once you're done, that's kind of it. You might be able to gather for another herb and honey somewhere, but are you really going to do that? Probably not. Like, once you're done, like, you're done. You're out of materials. But in World, hypothetically, you are never out of materials, and you have just a bottomless stockpile that you can operate from. And that was the point that I really did have to concede, was like, well, you have this hypothetical bottomless pit of materials. If you really wanted to get it instantaneously, you do have farcasters in the game. The erosion that can potentially do to tension, I think, is actually a bit damaging.
And I doubt that you would then stop and flex your muscles upon completion of the potion in front of the dragon's face. And if you're about to go into my comments and type,
we're talking about, all right, so this is going to be a big one.
Tell you that I promise I already
so this whole point, going over, let's say, the action economy of item usage,
fundamentally dumb.
I talk about it in the script. This is a mid-development addition that was added onto this section a good chunk of the way into production of the video, well past the point where the quality of life bit had been written. I had gone in, changed around the structures and changed around the segues and a whole bunch of other stuff so that I could fit this bit in.
The next one's nice and simple, sharpening while your weapon is drawn.
Because there was more to talk about than I had initially presented. A whole bunch of talking about how item usage in mid-hunt got affected came from a conversation with a friend, my buddy Core. And he was talking about one of the main issues that he was kind of having with World and then not having with the other games, and then had to kind of like go around and really kind of figure it out what kind of issue he was having. And he utilized the term action economy, which was interesting to me because if you use the term action economy, you usually hear it in a context related to D&D, where the term is essentially the amount of in D&D terms, it's the amount of stuff that you can do in your turn, like the amount of attacks you can use, the amount of, like, say, of like a bonus action, a reaction, an item usage, and all that kind of stuff.
There's no skill or challenge or difficulty to the system. It just randomly yeah, sure, you could eliminate this by holding items in your inventory called
lost my
combo
train of
books,
thought,
but
sorry.
these then clogged up your inventory, and what am I running around flipping through a cookbook in the middle of a volcano trying to
Oh yeah, talking about item combining books. Never liked those things. They always item combination books felt like they came from a different game. They really did. They felt like they came from an RPG where you had a combo skill that you could raise. It was very odd to me.
Speaking of item management and combination,
right, talking about the action economy type of stuff. That was a whole conversation where
you had to hold down a button,
a
whole bunch of times to scroll through your inventory horizontally until you find the item that you wanted. Can't say it was god awful. It was responsive. The scrolling was pretty fast. It's kind of limited.
Yeah, the comparison between sheathing the weapon and then you pop open the item menu and then you have to scroll over to the item that you want while the monster's still trying to fight you, and then you scroll over. You have to stop. You have to find an opening. You then take the healing item or whatever. And then you stop and you flex and you get all the health back in one instance, right? Whereas with Worlds, you have the radial wheel to get to your items more quickly. But at the same time, you also have the ability to move around while taking items and stuff like that. I will say one thing I'm never going to change my opinion on. Being able to sharpen with your weapon out was a great idea. It is just a sensible idea. The notion of stopping in the middle of the hunt, putting my weapon away, scrolling over to a whetstone, getting to a safe spot, pulling my weapon back out, sharpening it, and then putting my weapon back away, then getting back into the fight to take the weapon that I sharpened back out again. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I have always thought it was ridiculous. That is one thing, you know, you can, too fast of an action economy, sure, talk about it all day. The way that old whetstones worked, I hated the way that old whetstones worked. There's a whole bunch of stuff talking about the QOL in these changes. There's a whole bunch of it where these really, I really didn't get like a retroactive opinion shift. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of like, I needed to justify my purchase for the new Monster Hunter game, and I need to like blind myself to its issues and be like, well, no, I in fact, old game was bad. Like, don't you remember? Like, old game was bad, and this is why I am allowed to defend new game, is because old game was actually bad. There's a whole bunch of stuff where like, I really didn't mind this change, that change, and the other change, because I've been playing these games for 8 years. Before World existed, before I knew that they could get better, and I thought they were fucking annoying 5, 6, 7 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I thought they were obnoxious. There was stuff like I've always thought the flexing animation was a little corny. I get that's the point. It is corny. It is corny. I understand. Man, it's not sensible in the slightest. And like the way the old whetstones work, like that's stupid. That's actually dumb. There's some stuff with like some of the old traversal too. It's like I had problems with the old traversal before I knew that world existed. I very much wanted to be careful, and I think I did a good job of getting around it, of being like, am I actually like inventing problems for the older games to justify the fact that I want to present Iceborne as good? Or are these actual things are like, well, yeah, this did make the situation a good bit easier, but is it easier because, like, the game is neutered? Or is it easier because the old way of doing things was legitimately cumbersome and annoying? And there is some stuff where I'm like, no, I think the old Monster Hunter games were legitimately annoying in a couple of places. I mean, I made a really, really big stink about the blacksmith menu systems in the older games. I'm like, I stand by that. I've always thought that system was pretty bad. Like, I don't particularly care that, like, my set building is a whole lot easier and I have just, like, a quick menu tab over here and over here that I can get to actually, like, look at the sets that I'm building. I'm like, dude, I'm building a set, man. Like, I should be able to have, shouldn't be doing the game's paperwork for it. Like, I should have this paperwork and these, sheets in front of me. So that was something to be looking at with the QOL section a whole bunch. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not just saying, but old game was bad though, so you have to like the new game because old game was bad though. Like, no. Let's actually think about this, right? Let's actually go into what's happening, what changed, what used to be there, how is it different? Again, I will leave the concession where if you like the obstacles, awesome, you like the obstacles. I kind of like the obstacles at times, but there were times even before I knew that world existed where like, I'm a little sick of this game shit right now with something like a Freedom Unite or a Try or a 4, back before 5th generation ever existed. I'm like, I'm a little sick of your shit right now, older Monster Hunter. So I wanted to make sure that balance existed. Because at the same time, you know, I think like some of the restocking is a pretty big issue with how just completely and utterly easy it is.
Modern monsters at their best
I was like, you know, at the same point, it's like, yeah, no, I mean, like,
their more prolonged combos grant them
okay, is that too much? Yeah, that might be too much.
To punish your careless item usage. The downside is that even with these changes, it can be very difficult for monsters to properly compensate for your extra movement if they
So we're still talking about it right here. Yeah, so this is
kind
kind of going back. I kind of transitioned off the topic a little bit. I think I kind of tangented off of the topic a little bit, but talking about the action economy thing is it gets especially with the radial wheel and then the
even though their move pools are significantly broader than those of the classic
moving around with item usage, it has progressively become more and more difficult for the newer monsters to be able to item punish, where, dude, sometimes the item punishing in the older games is crazy. Like, you can watch a monster do a whole, do the startup for one attack animation, bait it so that it definitely misses, start to heal, and then they'll be out of that attack animation fully recovered and in the process of another attack animation that you cannot dodge before you're able to actually kind of properly get back into the swing of things.
Easier for the developers to maintain
whereas with the newer games, you kind of hit a different issue where, like, well, now I can move around and even do kind of like a light jog while I'm healing. Sometimes the monsters are having a legitimate issue being able to heal punish. Honestly, that's kind of why I like Volcana as much as I do. Because I felt like Volcana was a very effective heal punisher. I think that's part of the reason why some people really don't like Volcanas, because Volcana is a very effective heal punisher. There's a couple of monsters in the newer games, especially you do kind of have to get into the higher tier thresholds, where they are effective heal punishers, but they are more few and far between than they used to be. I think you kind of have to admit to that fact, that they are more few and far between, that it is progressively, partially, honestly, part of that is the action economy, like my buddy pointed out, and I wanted to give him credit when talking about that. The other thing is just, like, I think some of the newer monsters are a little bit slower. I think especially, something I would like to talk about in maybe a future video is going into the fact that rage speed modifiers kind of don't exist as much anymore, especially not to the capacity that they used to. And that's a big reason why a good chunk of the cast in the older games could be very, very threatening, is like rage speed modifiers, where if a monster was in rage, they'd be recovering from out of their attack animations incredibly quickly, and they'd be able to get on your ass in prolonged healing animations pretty effectively, unless you baited a really good attack for it.
But one of the major reasons I really like Sunbreak is that more or less its entire roster got some universal speed.
Got up early today. It is starting to catch up to me.
To their versions in the
hopefully I'm not yawning all over the place too much.
There's some
I think we're doing fine now.
But the monsters that start slow really kind of just stay slow. Is the classic system perfect, though? No. I have stated and continue to agree with the fact that I think some of the difficulty of the classics came from the fact that the old item system is weirdly and obtusely designed. I'm pretty confident in holding that opinion, as there were multiple times throughout the 8 or so years between me starting Monster Hunter and the time World came out where I thought that the old item management system worked against me. This is not a retroactive opinion. Frantic item scrolling.
Yep, so this is stuff I was just talking about. I don't really need to reiterate this too much, otherwise I'm repeating myself for a third time.
Item combinations were a hassle to access.
I really did want to give this its fair shake. As I was saying that this was retroactively added back in, this would have been...
may certainly be due to poor timing on
I think I mentioned him by name. This would have been after high rank Zoshia was added to Wilds. I think this initially this QOL section probably would have been written in mid-February. Oh yeah, I got this off. I had to get this off of some guy because he's doing like he's getting animation heal locked by old Tigrex. Because Tigrex at rage speed, especially with his charges, they recovered so quickly. Like if you had to heal against him, I don't know, good luck, dude. I was able to get it off fine. That guy was getting thrashed. Maybe he's just worse at the game than I am.
Adding an extra layer of time consumption
sometimes in classic. Yeah, but I wanted to go back. I wanted to give this section much more of its due, because the in the initial drafting, talking about the item management systems was very glazed over by comparison. There was not a lot of depth gone into it, and like especially after the action economy conversation I had with my buddy, I was like,
this does not
No,
have
there's
any
more to
shit.
say
I
here.
don't
There's
wanna just
more to do to
drag the
compare
classic system through the
how
mud
the
and
older
say that
games
it's
worked and how the
shoddy,
newer
takes
games
forever
worked
to
and
get
what
through,
problems
and, again,
were
hyperbolize
in
the
both of
negatives. I
them
really don't think
and
that's the case. This doesn't happen
what
against
strengths and
every monster in
advantages.
those games.
I
There are
I
plenty of
landed
monsters
on the
with
fact that
element
like
commitments that you can just
neither of them are
easily heal through.
perfect,
Like a
and
lot of
I
monsters
don't give a
and stuff
shit
like
if
that.
that's kind of a
What
fence
kind
sitting
of
type of
happens
thing.
is that these
I don't care if I have to
gaps
kind
that
of
I
both
just
sides a little bit.
described
It was like,
are
no,
absolutely
I have
semi-common
legitimate
occurrence in the old
mechanical
games. I do respect
grievances
the
with how
games
both
asking
of
you to
them
choose
are
their openings well, and
man
not
and
just
operated.
and heal willy-nilly.
I'll get into
You
a
need
point
to
a
be
little bit,
wise
but
about
there
the moments
is
that you pick for
there
that
is some
kind of
stuff I like with the
I
newer
just
stuff,
happen
with
to
the
think
fact that there
that
is
there
a
can
little
be
bit
a
better
string of
dance
a lot of those
maintenance.
moments at a time. You need to pick your moment to disengage. You need to pick your moment to sheathe. You need to pick
I
your
think we're
moment
gonna
to
get
use
into
an
like the
item.
Dark
You
Souls
need to pick the
comparison in
item
a
to
second here.
re-engage, and that can kind of just stop
Yeah,
and
so that
diminish
point,
the
talking
feel
about
of
the
the
fact that
I tend to
if,
like how the
especially I
healing
guess
works
with
in the
rate,
Dark
yeah,
Souls
okay.
games a little bit more for this reason.
Fun fact
Yeah,
with this
healing
footage,
can
this
still be a
is
risk that
saved.
waited
I
for,
saved a
but
couple
you
of my
have a
boss
lot
battles from
less
my.
of
This would be
just
my
a
second
string
playthrough of the
of
original
actions
Dark
that you need
Souls.
to commit to heal in that game.
I
So the
played it at a
games
buddy's
breaks
house. It was
up
my
so
very
much
first
less
playthrough of the original Dark
frequently.
Souls. Was playing
Does that
it
kind
at
of make sense
my
to
friend's
everyone?
house because he
I know
introduced it
that's
to
a
me
little
for the first
odd to
time.
visualize,
I got the
but mostly what I'm
trilogy,
saying
and
is
then I
that
was like,
in
I gotta
order
go
to
back
kind
through
of bait out
DS1
that proper
completely
time
because
to
one, I
heal
adored the game,
in
and two, I
the
wasn't
monster
I
game,
didn't get the
you need to
chance to
commit to a
finish it
lot
at
of
his
different
house. So I'm like, I
actions
gotta
that
finish
can
it.
sometimes have
So
a
there was a couple of
range
boss
to
fights
them.
where I was
Without
like,
really good
man, I'm
precise
super proud of how I
timing,
beat
sometimes
him, or
you
I'm
have
just like, I'm
a
happy that I
weak
beat
moment
this
to
boss. I got
just
some of
really
these on
good
Elden Ring as
timing,
well.
moment picking on your end. It can
And like,
feel like
I'm
you're
just gonna
disengaging for
save
a nice
these, and I'm just
beat
gonna hold them
chunk. And that
because I want to have them. So I'm like,
interrupts the flow
I
for me.
I had a point of comparison. It was like,
feels very
I actually really like how
cumbersome
healing in
that
Dark Souls
disengagement.
works,
Whereas I feel
because
like with
you
Dark Souls,
also
it's
are
only
in a
the fact you
pitched
don't have to
fight
see
where
if
like
you
the
can kind
enemy
of
is
get
attacking and
out of the way and
attacking and
attack
attacking and
heal
attacking and
get back in the
attacking,
fray of it. It
with
also
gaps in
has
between
that
for
need to really
certain
kind
like
of
end
commit to
lag on
item
certain
usage,
animations
but
and
with so
whatnot. So you
much
have to
less
pick your
time
battles and you have to
commitment
pick where you
to that
heal and whatnot.
disengagement.
But
I
with
hope
Dark
that makes
Souls, you never have to
sense.
put the
So,
weapon
I don't
away.
think either
So there's
system
never
is
a
entirely perfect.
disengage
I think
action
one is going
into
to
a
have to
sheathing
make the
action,
choice
into
whether
an
they go
item
with
selection
charm,
action,
an
into a
impractical,
healing
tougher to
action,
maneuver
into a
item system
reposition
that has
action,
less
into an
strength and is
unsheathing
easier to
action,
build the monsters
and then you
around,
reassume
or
with
if they go
combat.
a
Because
more
that is the
ironed out,
thing that I would
manicured
bump
item
into with the
system
older
that is
games.
sensible in its design,
It
despite
can
the fact
be
that
a little bit
sense
faster than
stability
it
is
sounds
more
like, but it
difficult
is
to
a
compensate
whole
for.
bunch
I
of
do think
choice,
I
choice,
kind of
choice,
prefer the
choice,
newer
choice,
system
and like a
that
whole bunch of them are
provides in
very,
some
very
respects.
unsafe
It asks for less disengagement for the
to
battle,
actually try to
thus keeping
engage
the
with,
combat flowing with very
and this can
few
kind of
true
drag you
intermissions.
outside
You're scrambling
of
off
the actual
next
boss
healing
battle.
opportunity for several seconds. The animations
And I
and
think that is
access
something
on
that
you
Monster
feel
Hunter
more
World can
true
kind
to
of rectify a
actual
good bit, because
healing
like, well, now I can
disengage.
just
can only go so far
disengage,
as an
yeah,
argument, though. You know,
but
you have to
since
have
it's tougher
some
for them to heal punish
limitations
because I
to
can move
your
around,
heroism, I understand
well,
that.
now
And
you're cutting
there's
into a
less
little
time
bit
where you're
less of my
scouring
decision
around
making and a
for
little bit
weapons to
less
use
of
because
my
the radial menu.
time
You're not
elapsed
just
out
getting
of
square buttons
combat.
over
I
and
can
over
get
and over
myself
again
back into the
to
fray a
make
whole
the
lot
thing you want.
quicker
If the developers
and
were more
whatnot. But
willing
at
to
the
give
same
the modern
point,
monsters some
you are
realistic
losing some
speed
challenge and you are
and,
losing some
bit
difficulty
animation can't
from
be
having
here
to
and there,
make
then
less of
I
these
think
challenges.
the
I'm like, I
smarter
really
action
like the
economy of
healing
the
system
newer
in Dark
items would be
Souls,
countered
because it is
particularly
a
well.
little bit
As
of
for
a
the
best
old
of both
system, I don't
worlds,
know, I
where
think
like
if we
I'm
look back at it a
not
little bit
being
more fondly, if we
disengaged
just
all
had
that
maybe
much,
some better
because I don't have to put
animation
away my
handling out
weapon,
of some
but at the
things,
same time, I
don't
do
know,
have to
make
pick
it
my
a
battles a
bit
little
more
bit
fluid.
better.
Also, I'm still gonna say this: the item combination success and failure percentages were always stupid, and I'm never defending that. Okay, thanks for bearing with me through that little.
All right, so we're
detour.
coming to the end of the
This'll
QOL
suck
section
about
again,
this
talking about the
interceding
combo
event
rates.
added
Never
a
liked the
bit
combo
late
rates.
production, and
Maybe
would have
somebody
been shifted
does.
earlier in the video if this
They're an
had
odd
been
individual to
the
me if they
rest
like
of
the
chunk of
combo
script.
rates.
Honestly, the whole item
I always thought they
system
belonged to a
probably
different
should have had its
game.
own
It was
timestamp,
very,
but
very
then
strange to me.
change things around like that, I'd have to rewrite the script, and it would have
Never
ruined
loved the the combo
segues
books, because
that
like
were
now
already
the
kinda
combo
set
books
in
can just take
stone.
up my
It just
item
would've
space.
upended the structure of the script
Yeesh,
as
I am more
it was
tired than I
written.
thought I was.
So it is what it is.
I usually get up
so now
relatively
we're gonna
early
go
today.
back to the other quality of life changes that World brought to Monster Hunter. You now also have infinite stamina for sprinting when you're
Right,
out of
okay, so
combat.
this part is a little bit more kind of rapid
Loading zones
fiery.
and very long corridors and hallways to trek through. They also added in omnidirectional rolling to the game rather than four-directional rolling.
Omnidirectional rolling.
Extra movement
Omnidirectional
control.
rolling.
Also, thank
Lovely.
goodness they
Love
finally
that.
lance and
Being able to
numbers
roll
flash forwards. I don't
backwards.
know
It's
why
so
they couldn't
nice.
do that in the old games.
I get this has
Thank
been
God to get
something
them
where like
really operating
I've been
on
playing a
the
whole bunch of
responsive
3U
world,
recently
massively overhauled your
because I've been
controls
working
for
on 3U for some stuff for the laggy video and whatnot. I was able to borrow it off of a buddy on his 3DS.
Now, the Hunter's Notes gives you some
there's so much stuff from like, why can't I roll backwards? Why can't I roll backwards? I'm like, please just let me roll backwards. It's literally the only thing that would be safe right now. I'm like, the game's like, that doesn't exist, Connor. Fuck you. You should be back hopping with a lance if you want to roll backwards, you idiot. Like, no, come on. Omnidirectional rolling was so nice, so nice. It's just like it feels like you have more proper control of your character. It's just more responsive that way, honestly. Talking about the Hunter's Notes definitely get better in this game. Rise and Sunbreak still have the best one for sure, even better than Wilds, because unfortunately Wilds did some regression in that area, which sucked, but this is different. I mean, if any of you started out with some of the older games, you definitely probably remember needed to go onto like third-party websites and whatnot to go information hunting, to look up like, what is the monster weak to? What are their hit zone values? What are the part drop rates? Because none of that stuff is in the older games. None of that stuff is in the older games. Could it be better? I mean, like the star system isn't great. It really doesn't tell you anything. But at the same time, is like, at least it's information.
The roster of hunters can swap around like that, and also due to the fact that World blended the village storyline quests and multiplayer hub quests.
This is talking a little bit about the multiplayer scaling. This is something I'd like to talk about later on this year, is actually talking about how the scaling operates and some of the mechanisms around that. I don't want to go into that too depth just yet, but that might be a video we'll work on this year, really kind of talking about some game design aspects related to it. Again, this has to be...
So if you couldn't, or
oh yeah, no, there's people there. So this would have totally been footage ripped from a live stream, and it just poor footage gets compressed to all hell.
1 player, 2 players, or 3 to 4 players. Good change here as well. Makes G rank, now renamed Master Rank, significantly more single player friendly. If players drop in or out, the monster scaling will shift in real time.
Yeah, so this is talking about just like the scaling thing in general, and also the drop in, drop out nature of the quest structure. Both of those I really liked. It made... You can get a really good challenge off of Guild G rank in some of the older games. Like, it can be very satisfying to beat some of those very difficult quests. At the same time, the scaling, it was something that was like, as soon as I learned how scaling worked in the older games, I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. Granted, there might be some of the games where, like, there could be technological limitations and whatnot, like... They really kind of can't create those more dynamic instances. Maybe they just kind of can't do that, where like a quest can have shifting values based on members. I don't know. That might be something interesting from just a program engineering perspective. Maybe they just kind of couldn't. But that doesn't mean I have to like the fact that there was the multiplayer scaling.
Lobbies if you go looking. I just don't like the flare. It's a shame too, because they...
Oh yeah, the SOS flare. I never loved the SOS flare. I don't think that's a particularly fun mechanic. It de-incentivizes going to the multiplayer.
It makes the hunters gathering hubs feel lively and active, like a functioning location that several hunting teams can operate out of at the same time. When you get a filled lobby with 12 to 16 people, it's cool to see all the different armor sets.
Okay.
Hop between the groups. It's
yeah, so talking about...
They removed the gunner armor class from the game in World entirely. For those of you who don't know, in the old games, just about every armor set had a gunner.
Some leftover stock images. Well, I say stock images, but that's definitely recycled images that was just saved in my camera roll after the Carapacian video. I'm like, I have armor saved up in here. Let me just use those. That's funny because you just pop out Shogun Centaur armor for like, why Shogun armor? It's like, well, I had the images. I do miss gunner sets though. I think a lot of people miss gunner sets. Unfortunately though, man, I don't know. Getting rid of gunner sets was probably the single healthiest thing for the poke guns. Like, now I don't need to make 2 sets for everything. I just make a set of armor.
work with if you really want them. The game also will track the total amount of materials that you need for everything on the wish list. For example, if you want
Wish listing, also a goated. Yeah, I mean, they just made set building so much more doable in this game, so much more manageable in this game. This is like, if you want to make a set, all right, let's give you some tools to actually work with you here, because it's just the game actively argues with you in some of the older titles. Is like, no, 17 menus. Look at all of them separately.
All the major stuff I wanted to cover regarding
Fuck
quality
you.
of life and mechanical overhauls that World brought to Monster Hunter.
And then the modern ones are just like, yeah, you want to make a set? Sick. Let's make a set, buddy.
Old games made were tweaked just enough, had some
It's gonna be annoying with some of the RNG elements, but like we can do it.
Just cool new ideas.
We can do it.
Impacts. There's also a ton of excellent and needed menu adjustments and simplifications that drastically improve the process of set making. There's a couple places where I think these changes were a bit too forgiving, for sure, but honestly, I
think
feel
we're winding down the QOL section right here.
Next up, we're going to move away from World's major overhauls to Monster Hunter itself and move into World and Iceborne's unique tools and gimmicks. Let's cover the mantle system first.
All right, yeah, so this is where we're going to be talking about...
In some cases,
this I think is going to be the bulk of the rest of part 1 of this review, is actually going into the unique mechanics that World had. And I wanted to do them... I'm kind of forgetting exactly what the basis for the ordering was. I knew for a fact that Clutch Claw was going to have to be last. That I knew for matter of fact.
Also tied to the same equipment slots are these
at the same time, though, I don't know if I necessarily had... Mantles I felt like made sense to be the starting thing. I mean, mantles were big in for the first things that they advertised about the gimmicks, and I feel like it was probably like the first big gimmick change was the hunting mantles. Probably, yeah. It was probably the first major thing that they showed off in the marketing in terms of like, these are the new things that you're going to be doing. Yeah, no, you got the ghillie mantle. It's like right up in front of the marketing.
All 5 elements have mantles.
I didn't figure out what I really thought about the mantles, right? Because the mantles are okay. I feel like I'm very neutral on the mantles. Some of them are legitimately interesting from a gameplay perspective in what they bring to the table. I think some of the blight-proof mantles have a lot of really fun extra gimmicks that they have on top of them. Like the paralysis negation on the Thunder one, the increased dragon attack on the Dragon one, the current resistance on the Water one. I'm like, okay, so there's some legitimately interesting ability play off of this one. That's really cool. And then you have some things like, you have the evasion mantle, which is just free adrenaline rush. I think this is before adrenaline rush existed too. Like, that was fun to play around with. The glider mantle, I think the glider mantle turned out to be like one of the best ones in the game, if for nothing else than just like pure slottage and uptime. Glider mantle was fun. It's one of those, I didn't play around with it nearly as much as I should have. But I mean, you kind of can't get around the fact that Rocksteady and Temporal were as powerful as they were. And as we're going to get into later on, we're talking about these mechanics, the Clutch Claw really just made them worse. But even in base worlds, I mean, Temporal was just like, here's 6 hits you don't need to worry about anymore. And then Rocksteady at least had like some give and take and some bait and punish and whatnot and all that type of stuff. But like, at the same time, you can kind of just no-sell. It's especially easy if you have a health regen augment. And you can kind of just not care. I think Iceborne especially made the Rocksteady obnoxiously powerful with health regen augments and how the Clutch Claw operated. And how the Clutch Claw operated in tandem with the Rocksteady mantle. But some of them were a lot of fun.
I use the Temporal Mantle a ton. At its best, though, I think the Mantle system is a creative batch of extra tools that offers you some alternative playstyles and potent defensive options.
They were at their best, I would say, when they were experimental in creating a new playstyle. And that's why I should have played on it. I wish I played with the glider mantle more. I really didn't start to kind of noodle around with the glider mantle until I was actually doing research for this, because you're watching me like I'm running dual blades. This is a shitty dual blade set to be running against Pink Rathy because it's poison dual blades, but I'm like, fuck it, whatever, I'm having fun with it, like doing the mounting attacks and whatnot, and the fact that, what has it got, like I think it has like 2 3s on it for its slottage. I'm like, this is just fun. This is just fun to use. I should have used it more. I always thought like it was just like an interaction-based mantle. Like it really wasn't. It was pretty combatively viable. Talking about the cat tools.
Check out their mini upgrade tree that makes your Palico more effective as you play the game.
I had to go in and actually research what all of these did.
With the Vigor Wasp healing. Your cat has basically 2 different ways to heal you for a really, really good chunk.
I had to go figure out what all of these cat issues like even actually.
In Master Rank, he can actually give you a free revive.
Sorry. I had to actually go in and figure out like what all of them did. I have to look for like the song tables for the hunting horn cats.
Honestly, I think
the healing one is just super convenient. I had to brush up on all of these, which was fun to do. I had done pretty much all of them in my initial world playthrough. I think in the secondary one, I just ran like the coral horn with me the entire time, like dual hunting horns.
That you could be using instead. If you pick the
I think that's the only one I really leveled up, though. You know, the healing one will always eventually get leveled up. Oh, trying to get the Meowcano footage was a pain in the neck. Honestly, if I kept going, I probably could have got a really good one. But at a certain point, I was like, this is just getting annoying to try and get. I really wanted to get it on the topple on that Black Diablos right there, like throw it into the wall, and like, all right, perfect opportunity to throw it in the Meowcano. Like, I got a couple of hits right there, but at the same time, I was like, that's not really what I'm looking for, buddy. Whatever.
My personal favorite is the orchestra. It's nice to get a small collection of decent but not too overpowered.
Orchestra is the personal favorite. Is that still true?
Free flinches can be incredibly helpful in a tight
Probably.
I
yeah.
ran on my cat for the majority of my second playthrough, and having 2 hunting horns for the price of 1 was really useful, but didn't feel particularly.
Is there anything else super interesting to talk about with the cat gadgets?
Original playthrough of World, and yeah, the Vigor Wasp is super convenient. It made my HUDless gameplay not absolute garbage for this video. I do think that as a whole, it's a really fun system that offers a lot of helpful extra tools. I can sometimes overlook the companion abilities in Monster Hunter, but I enjoyed leveling.
That is a fair point. I do often overlook the companion abilities. I'm like,
and one extra mechanic to tack onto this section is the
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of layers in there, and some of the stuff like GU and Freedom Unite and 4 and stuff that I just like, man, I just don't look into this. I kind of just let the cat do whatever. The best thing the cat can do for me is make it easier for me to heal because the monster's trying to beat the crap out of it, honestly. That's the best thing that you can do for me sometimes. And this was probably the first game I was like, all right, well, let's actually like look at what these abilities do and what's necessarily useful here. I've got to a point where I mostly just run a whole bunch of paralysis on my companions.
Leveling them up as helpers is a neat little bit of busy work that will very naturally and unobtrusively progress as you play. Like the mantles, there's just one really effective.
I'd continue to talk more, but this is a very sensitive microphone, so it's probably very quiet
super
for me while
neat
I'm
abilities,
standing.
and I would definitely recommend toying around with this mechanic more if you haven't already. Next up, I'm going to talk about the Slinger. Now, this bad boy,
all right, talking about the Slinger before we're talking about the Clutch Claw.
The Slinger is a super nice.
The Slinger is the much nicer little brother. I actually grew to very much enjoy the Slinger as I was playing World. I felt that the Slinger, it was a very naturally incorporated hunting multi-tool. As far as I was concerned, like, it could do a whole bunch of stuff, but it couldn't do it, like, that much better than the old game. It was a little bit more snappy. It's a little bit crisper. It's a little bit cleaner than, like, hand-chucking the flash pods or the sonic bombs or anything like that, but, like, it wasn't, like, that much crazier. Honestly, the only thing that was really crazy is just, like, the radius
naturally on
and
ground.
the peripheral vision needed for flash bombs to be able to impact monsters. That it's flat. Honestly, it was Flash itself got tremendously buffed, more so than like the Flash delivery system was overhauled so much. I mean, if you had a gripe with how that operates, it's much more like how the actual Flash bombs worked. But like, I really like the Slinger.
And there's things like thorn pods, which can be lodged in a monster and inflict.
It's continued to develop pretty alright with wilds as well, with the fact that like you can knock ammo off of monsters from like part breaks and battle damage and stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool.
They can be applied on top of naturally gathered Slinger ammo and won't replace it. The Slinger also serves.
They were also able to just kind of like work into the combat a good bit. This was one where I had to go into. I get comments all the time. It's like, man, I love your content, but your gameplay, yikes, man. Like, I know. I play all the weapons wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not making an effort to improve. I'm sorry. But this was one where I had to actually go in and be like, how does this weapon work exactly? Like, how do I actually, like, what Slinger options am I being provided with the attacks in this game? Honestly, it wasn't even all of them, but there was a whole bunch of like, yikes! I don't actually know exactly how some of the mechanics work with the Slinger and how it works in a combat and whatnot. Let me actually like, go in and figure out how 1000% some of this actually works.
A healthy chunk of the weapon roster received new unique attacks and attributes tied directly to the Slinger. For some weapons, like the Greatsword and the Hammer, Slinger burst attacks can be used to shorten the wind-up of certain combos or charge attacks, while also having a decent chance of flinching a monster. Alternatively, the Dual Blades and Switch Axe can use Slinger burst attacks to perform evasive dodge maneuvers. Still, other weapons like the gun.
Right, an overarching point that not only did they just work in the Slinger to be a bit of a multi-tool, but as a combat device, it is multifaceted. I really just don't have anything super negative to say about the Slinger, honestly. I really don't.
It makes the Slinger feel less like a novel little accessory and more like a thought-out part of the game. Even if I forget about that aspect a lot, I'm a big fan of this little device. Though not every weapon got a new attack utilizing it, it's a convenient, multifaceted.
I don't think I have anything too much more to say about the Slinger beyond just a general appreciation for it. But this was probably the first time I really sat and like, I like the Slinger when I was writing the scripts. It was something that just kind of wasn't said aloud in general. And I think the Clutch Claw and its perception can kind of impact how some people reflect on the Slinger, but like just kind of by itself as it was, how it impacted a whole bunch of weapons and gave them either like new extensions or new evasive techniques or new attacks or whatnot. I'm like, no, this was good. This was legitimately really good.
That is very important. Oh, sure, it can be a lot of fun.
All right, this is the Clutch Claw.
Very needy, very demanding.
The Clutch Claw.
Insists upon itself. But at the same time, I'm not someone who's
trying to remember
of Clutch Claw bad.
Man, maybe I won't be hanging out after this, after the commentary's done for too long. I am fucking sleepy. Holy crap. I'm trying to remember what exactly my opinion was on the Clutch Claw before writing. It definitely went down after writing when I really... The more I learned about how this tool operates, the less I liked it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that's probably a big thing for a lot of people, to be honest, but... This was one where I was like, man, what do I think about this tool? Because it's, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like you're creating artificial weak points on a monster to temporarily give it, to give another one better hit zones. The downside being that, like,
as described in the previous section. This is why the gun lance is classified as a light.
I think I lost my train of thought right
Slinger
there.
ammo after a tenderizing attack. It needs that fuel to utilize its Wormstake blast ability. You do have to.
Man, I am tired. I did not know how tired I was going to be for this. I feel like I'm doing all right. Hope you guys are enjoying this, by the way. I hope this is relatively entertaining as background audio. I was hoping that this would be a fun idea. I am enjoying myself, but I'm only sitting in my chair and I was like, oh, geez. But let's see. Yeah, no, there had to be a lot of research going into.
Like this up to 3 times, and after that third turn, it will
not even so much a ton of research. I knew how good chunk of how the clutch claw operated at this point. There, I had to get my script corroborated because this was probably the one where I was like, I need to get this right. So I actually sent this to. I sent the written version of this part of the script to my buddy Zevris. I sent it out to him to be like, hey, buddy, I need to make sure that I'm getting all this information right, as this might be maybe the most analytically important aspect of the entire thing. I really probably shouldn't be getting aspects wrong, because it is a major point of Iceborne specifically, and it is also one of the most cited bits amongst people who don't like World in Iceborne, of like, this is one of the big things for them. Of being against this game is how the clutch claw operates. And it wounds me a little bit, because I talk about this a bit and talking about, you know, your diplomatic language and try to actually concede to people who have a different take from you. Clutch claw is like something I really do want to like, but I couldn't get away from the issues and how it was designed as I was writing this. I could see where they were coming from with the clutch claw. I knew what they wanted it to be, but I believe they drastically underestimated the Rock City Mantle and the Temporal Mantle. Or at the very least, they underestimated how much that people were going to use those. Because now you have a system where, like, you have to be clinging onto a monster part to get a weak point to open up the better hit zones. It's probably your #1 way to get Wex to even work in this game with how hit zones are changed around. So it's like, you kind of have to do this now, but at the same time, you have these two devices where you can effectively just no-sell entire monster moves, because what they want you to do is do a kind of bait and punish type of thing. We're like, oh, Rathian is doing a tail whip. If Rathian is doing a tail whip, then that means there's no active hitbox on Rathian's head. So if I see the windup for the tail whip, I'm going to clutch claw onto the head, because that means that I have, like, the ready, set, go to just grapple on and do my grappling attack and then hop off, and now I've exposed the head as a more full weak point while she was preoccupied. That is absolutely what they wanted and what they thought people were going to be doing. Rocksteady and Temporal were too powerful, honestly. It was just like, well, I need this, and this opened up, so I'm just going to chuck this on. I'm going to hop on here, attack here, hop on here, attack here, hop on here, attack here. With the monsters attacking, I don't really give a fuck. I can just tear them all open. Doesn't really matter to me particularly. And then I'm done, and I have all my weak points, and by this point, the Temporal Mantle is mostly gone, but, I mean, I did what I needed it to do with it anyway, so who really cares? And you couldn't quite get around that fact in the writing. And then you also have, you know, your baked-in procedures that they had with the turning and the wall throwing. Because, again, I'm betting that they wanted to create a super fun experience with the wall throwing. It was like, yeah, you can wrangle the monsters and get up on their head and slam them into each other and throw them into walls. That's why Austin likes Ice. Every time we talk about Clutch Claw, Austin's like, I miss Clutch Claw. I loved the Clutch Claw. I liked being able to throw monsters into walls and throw monsters into other monsters. I'm like, I get it, buddy. I really do. I like that part a lot. It's super fun. Man, that tool had a lot of other gigantic problems that wasn't the throwing. And even the throwing almost kind of was a little bit of an issue, because they had to do countermeasures. Because they had to do countermeasures, that just skyrocketed up Agitator. And because of the fact that you skyrocketed up the need to have Agitator, well then, that also kind of means that you're getting a little bit of, like, build bottlenecking. Because, well, now you kind of really need to be building into Agitator. So you're either looking for maybe like 1 or 2 pieces of Bracky pieces on certain sets. Typically what you're looking for is like 2 Pace Fatalis and then the rare 5 agitator charm, and then you're finding like 2 other agi that goes on 4 slots, and then that's a good chunkier build that you're just like locked in on.
A third of its damage to almost half.
And that is
also, since the hit zone
pretty, it's not quite universal, but it's on a lot of shit. It's on a lot of shit.
Could not have done otherwise. Not only did the developers make the monster's regular hit zones worse,
and then, you know, of course, if you're getting all those bonuses, you're getting automatic agitator, well then, there's almost this feeling of like, well, why wouldn't I bring Rocksteady, and why wouldn't I bring Temporal? Because, like, I gotta guarantee that I'm gonna get agitator off rip, and then maintain agitator for as much as possible, so, like, I might as well be able to no-sell all attacks and just automatically guarantee that I'm gonna get my free agitator proc, instead of needing to do necessarily any work for it. So this was stuff that I just had to like peel back the layers and the layers and the layers and the layers of like, what are the cascading ramifications of this? Because it very much feels like this was a very fun developer vision of having a monster wrangling tool where you have to bait and punish and be patient and nab these opportunities manually, and like, all right, well now we can kind of wrangle up the monster and we can toss it around and chuck it around and weaken it up, and it's this next like new level of dimension and interactivity that you can have, and then just like it's this thing that you kind of bump into with certain bits of like mechanic, especially not even so much power creep but mechanic creep, where like, well now you have to have abilities that have built-in resiliences against other abilities so that like they don't cross-pollinate and they don't get into each other's face and they don't start to like slam into one another. World and Iceborne definitely have this issue. I think it is probably the game with the most cannibalistic gameplay mechanics built into them for a Monster Hunter game, where it's just like they really just do the cascading ramifications and just slamming into one another, and the bottlenecking of certain options to make good on really, really solid other options. I'm like, you're kind of eat a little bit into the theory crafting and the gameplay stylistic choices and whatnot by having the Clutch Claw be so important. So this was something I really, really wanted to hammer home, because I know there's a lot of people who love this game and love the Clutch Claw, but again, we're talking about diplomatic language and actually kind of communicating a point with some level of authority. There was this idea in the script of like, I really need to hammer home, I really need it to ring true that there is a legitimate issue backed behind how this thing operates. Like, I need to spell it out for you so you can understand that there's very legitimate reasons why someone would not like this at all.
Wearing a maxed out agitator charm and then slotting in the last 2 levels of agitator.
Yeah, I'm going into the set building stuff right now. It was kind of a fun thought experiment, honestly, going into this, and as much as it could be a little disheartening to learn all the issues that existed with the Clutch Claw, it was a very, very fun bit of analytics of looking at like a mechanical cascade.
Open up a hunt by slapping
and just trying to like observe and sit back and take a look at how the mechanics actually melded off of one another, because they can't exist in a vacuum independently from one another. They have to bounce off of one another at some point to some degree. If they have any kind of overlap in general function, you have to take a look at that when you're going into assessment. And it was a it was one of my favorite parts of the script to write, was this section, was for those specific purposes. I did get one or 2 comments that got a little bit mad at me that I laid into the Clutch Claw so hard for the damage it can do to optimal or near optimal play styles.
You have to admit that
to those people, just like, you have to keep watching the video, man. I was like, I am trying to be also on your side right here and give you some legitimacy.
Basically for free. You can recognize,
but man, I have problems.
Some degree of build and combat strangulation, right? You can understand why someone would be burnt
I think
out
this
on
is
the
just reiterating a good chunk of what
I
I was just talking about.
Extremely repetitive and easy way to very quickly maximize its output in a robotically simple process. You can understand why some people think this thing is super intrusive, demanding, and attention grabbing, yeah? You can understand that some people are peeved that the developers nerfed a bunch of numbers to railroad you into using this thing. I think the Clutch Claw is a.
Oh right, I used CR-Volcanic theme for this bit. I think for
really fun tool spread.
What did I use? I used Valhazak's theme for the mantles because I thought that was funny because he's in like a mantle of like carrion corpses, which is additionally funny because I forgot to include Valhazak's theme in the music section. I got comments back on part 3. I was like, what have happened to Valhazak's theme? Like, fuck, I missed it. God damn it. It was funny because I forgot about the arena themes. And I guess this is just going to be a tradition. I'm going to miss like one major song per game, apparently, because I missed the arena themes in Rise. I'm like, I'm not going to miss the arena themes this time when I'm doing the music in the music section. Like, I'm not going to miss the arena music again. And then I miss a whole ass boss theme. But yeah, no, I think I put CR-Volcanic's theme in this section as this was like the big Iceborne mechanic was for this one.
Like Monster Hunter, and you can always have the choice to participate or not.
Yeah, this is the part where I had to like do a whole bunch of caveats talking to because like the argument was going to pop up in the comment section, and it did once or twice. Thankfully, though, the majority of the comments actually listened to the video.
Monster Hunter with me on stream for the first time recently,
because
certainly didn't play in that.
You're always when you get a game like this and someone has complaints about how the optimization functions or any kind of build bottlenecking or the game having a meta, there's always going to be the counter argument of like, you can't escape a meta in a game like this, and that can ring true in certain respects and in certain circumsituations. I am sleepy. In certain circumcisions. In certain situations, it is unavoidable, and you can like imprison yourself in your own obsession with playing Number Hunter instead of playing Monster Hunter. Like, that is very legitimate. At the same time, the Clutch Claw issues, I think, went deeper, and it really warranted, I think, the amount of scrutiny that I put it under in this video. It's probably one of my bits of analysis that I'm the most proud of.
I see the logic.
Though there's some stuff with the guiding lands as well that I am also very happy with how I broke down.
I think that to a certain degree, if you enslave yourself to the most viable option and or simple option, some of your lack of fun.
I'll let me take it over because I do really like how I phrase it.
I find that there are specific issues with the Clutch Claw and the things surrounding it that exacerbates the existence of gameplay optimization issues in a game like Monster Hunter. And I think this
that was an overarching point that like it's not even so much that there is a meta issue, it's that the Clutch Claw makes the meta issue worse. I think was the ultimate conclusion I was kind of coming to when I was writing this, is like,
I'm not opposed to there being,
because I was talking about it earlier with the RNG decorations. Like, do I really care about the RNG decorations? Not really. Not that much. Like, I'm clearing monsters just fine. It's not super fast. It's like 12-15 minutes, but like, I don't give a fuck. I'm here to I want the monster to be able to do its moves. I want to interact. I want to have the battle be a little bit longer. That's fine with me. Whatever. Who cares? With this one, I was like, well,
4 or 5 of them.
The Clutch Claw, unfortunately, just kind of makes it worse, honestly.
That many. And I'm sure the developers understood how they worked in tandem to some extent. They made the game and play tested it. But I think some oversights and overtly bad choices, like the hit zone nerfs especially, created some issues that resulted in more railroading towards the gimmick than most Monster Hunter games usually deal with. And that sucks for a game like Monster Hunter, which prides itself on having a ton of available and customizable playstyles. And it sucks for a game like World and Iceborne that has one of the biggest arrays of biggest playstyles and customization abilities. And things like the gadgets, the mantles, the slinger, and the Clutch Claw were supposed to, and
I don't know what else I would want to go into in this section that's not just reiteration of the points.
Typically how
this goes along a little bit long, just due to the fact that I had a whole bunch to say about it. There is a little bit of me where I'm like, do I belabor the point a bit too much in this section going into it? Because I feel there was one comment I got, is like, I kind of think you might be protesting a little bit too much in this particular section when you're going into some of the issues of the Clutch Claw. Like, you're projecting a little bit here. I'm like, I don't think so. At the same time, there might be some legitimate idea behind the idea
really
that
well. Practice getting some damage increases with iframes off of
I don't know. I might be
Palico
like
is
leaning
using
a
the core
little,
ones to buff my stats
a little
extra,
heavy into
all while
like.
I'm using some, I don't know, roughshod lance build.
Well,
that I
hey,
slapped
make
together
sure
in
you're
like
looking
an
at
hour.
the
That's
flaws
a
of this
lot
thing.
Fun for me. I generally really enjoy playing World and Iceborne because it lets me do really cool like that. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that that is what the developers intended. How I play World is probably pretty close to how they hoped people were going to play it, but that doesn't mean that there aren't these fundamental issues in how the game is designed, and I have to be honest about that. Now, my biggest issue with World on a subjective level...
Okay, we're winding down
totally
this
the
section. I
slap
can
on
move to the next one,
Pipe
because I'm a
Weapon
little
Design.
bit, I think I'm at a... Actually talking about going into the writing for this one.
Here. These designs don't actually affect the game on a
Yeah, I had
gameplay
0
level.
point to
Come
put
on,
the
dude. They
layered
look
weapon
awful.
stuff.
They tried going for like a realism thing where you're
I
actually
really like it didn't fit in the
attacking
QOL.
monster bone and iron weapons.
I guess it
There's
could have
this
fit in like
theory
the
that they were
Etc stuff at
supposed
the
to build
end.
these weapons into the more
But-
fantastic designs that Monster Hunter is known for, but they just never finished.
I don't know.
It
It just didn't really
rectify that
fit
issue in
anywhere, so
Iceborne
I
either.
decided
A lot
to just
of
kind of
weapons
make a
just
gag out
straight
of
up
them.
ignored this
It's
idea
like
completely. It was a dumbass,
my biggest
stupid
objective
idea.
dislikes,
So
my biggest
stupid that
dislikes
they
from an
actually had to
objective and a
affirm
subjective
that
level.
This wasn't going to be an issue in WoW.
Look
Yeah,
how
I
fucking
don't know.
sick
I
this
didn't
killer-
have
this
anywhere
was
else in the
fun.
script to bitch about how bad the horrible
And
slap on
boop.
weapons look. They weren't
And
getting into
dead.
their own time
That was
stamp,
really
and
fun.
This
That was fun
a
to get
pretty
live and
heavy
record
section,
that.
so I kind of wanted to just end this with a joke. All right, we're going to swap into the end game stuff. We're going to talk about tempered monsters next. All right, cool.
All right, tempered monsters.
So, the tempered monsters.
Man, do I have
are
anything
what's
to
going
say
make
about
up
what
the
I had
bulk
to say
of
about
your
tempered
endgame in
monsters?
both base
This
game
is another
world
section I
and
almost
in
feel I can
Iceborne.
kind of just let it rock,
Thing
because
about
like,
tempered monsters
man, what do you even
is
say about
that,
tempered monsters?
well,
Honestly,
they're
there's really
kinda
just...
too mid to have a super strong.
Yeah, thankfully I kind of just go
I
through
trust
this
them having
section pretty
function
quick. There
a
really is
little
the biggest
while
thing
further.
is just
The
kind of
only
like their own
real
separate
difference
materials that you get in the
tempered
guiding
monster
lands is
and a
the
regular
bulk of
monster
it.
is that
I went
tempered
looking
versions
into
of
the numerical
a little
levels
bit darker,
for a
gains
good
attack
number of
increase,
them.
and its maximum health is buffed by about
I think it's
15 to
really just
20%
health and attack
depending on the
buffs.
monster and the quest type. That's about it. That's tempered monsters, at least on a mechanical level. They don't have a damage point minigame. There's no scaling quest system.
There's just so
There's
many
no
better
new
ones.
moves.
Like the anomaly
These
system is
just,
much better.
Noticeable, but
I think
not
even like the
really
hyper system
heinous
is better.
or
The frenzied
buff.
ones
I
are
mean,
obviously
at
better.
least not an
I don't
over-designed
love the
system. I
hypered
don't
ones,
hate
but at
some
least the hypered
economic
ones
quests,
have
but
like
that
some
system
odd
has a
attack
ton of little
timings to
baked
throw
in
you off and
mechanics
whatnot.
that
At least
resulted
it's
in a
like
bit of a pacing
interesting.
issue with the end game
Tempered
overall
monsters
on
are
that
just
one.
so
The
nothing
most
in this
interesting
game.
thing about the tempered monsters
Wilds does
is
make them
probably
better,
the rewards.
fortunately.
Tempered monster
I feel that
initiations
they're
are really
just,
good for
they're
fun
literally just like
decorations,
slightly
which
bigger
gives them
health
solid
pools.
utility as individual quest targets. Tempered monsters also grant you important materials for endgame charm and weapon upgrades. And their
That was
guiding
probably the
lands
most
fights will
annoying
drop
part right
materials
there,
that can be
is
used for
the-
weapon augments. They also drop their materials and decorations in fairly generous quantities, so it's nice that you're not really getting nickeled and dimed by each tempered monster individually. The most important thing to know is that
The
tempered
brain
monsters
fog getting me
operate
pretty
on
bad
three
with
different
that
tiers,
one.
sorted by monster difficulty. And there's a couple of monsters at the very, very
I'm still
bottom of the
coherent
difficulty
by
tier
the
that
time
don't have
this is
tempered forms in
over.
the slightest. We'll call them
I don't think we
like
have too
tier
much longer
0
in this,
monsters.
actually.
The tier 3 monsters
It's,
drop the best
what, it's
upgrade
2 hours
materials
and 40
decorations.
minutes?
So you're going to be fighting
An hour and
predominantly
56?
Elder
Okay.
Dragons and Elder Dragon level
I was like,
monsters
I don't want to
like
fucking
Devils
fall
Over Day,
asleep on in the middle of
basically
writing
during
this,
the
but like, I
end
really don't have
game
anything.
run.
I don't have
suppose
anything to
the
go into like
worst
the
thing
development
about this
purposes
system
behind going into
is
the tempered
tier
monsters.
3
Like, there's
monsters are just
nothing
so
to
much
say
more
about
valuable
them in this
individually
game.
that you're going to be fighting the lower rungs of the roster very infrequently, which results in a lot of the early to mid game monsters being particularly underutilized in the end of Iceborne. I said
That would be an
but I'll
issue, yeah.
reiterate,
There is
the
a kind of a
nicest thing about
lacking
tempered
amount
monsters is that the
of
progression
incentive to
doesn't
go
scale.
backwards.
The
Like
scaling that they do have
Wilds
is
and
not
Sunbreak
horrible.
both do
So
better
in
with
order to get the
back hunting
really nice
incentive.
weapon augment materials, you
World
don't have to min-max
really
them.
doesn't.
You might get like, say, 13 and 15 minute clear times with only a decent set, but that's not the end of the world. It's a perfectly okay, pretty inoffensive, enormously simple endgame loop. You fight the really cool monsters in World and Iceborne, but they're a little stronger. I'd say their damage stats are a bit more comparable to those of old Monster Hunter games, perhaps. I think that they're
I don't even know if that's
It's the most
necessarily true. That
middle
point,
of the
like
line,
the damage
perfectly
increases
okay
are comparable.
monster endgame system that
I'd have to
they've
actually
ever
look at
done,
those. I don't have
though it's
hard
also
numerical
definitely
information
the
for that.
least mechanically interesting of all the amped up monster end games that I've ever seen. I suppose this is a good enough time
Yeah,
to talk
I'd have to
about the
agree.
arch-tempered
I mean,
monsters.
I
They're
don't
not
know
as
how.
baked into the end game as
Honestly,
the
Wilds might
standard
put the
tempered
tempered
ones, which are kind of just
system
end game
over
challenge super bosses.
the
Some of these guys are
hyper
kinda neat.
system at this
Most of them
point
are
for
kinda
me,
lame.
maybe.
The arch-tempered
Hardcore
Elder
is
Dragons
probably
are
still the best
super
one.
end-game post-launch
OG Frenzied is
challenge
probably
fights that
second
could
best.
reward you with some very
Anomaly,
powerful gamma armor
and
sets.
then probably
The gamma
and then
sets
probably
are
like
pretty
Wilds
straightforward.
tempered,
You fight the
and
monster, say, like
then
5 times, you get a good armor set out of them. There's no never-ending.
Then
loop.
hyper.
Though the AT monsters can reliably drop some of the
Then
end-game
probably
level
World
upgrade
tempered.
materials, so there's some reason to go back and fight them more than just their armor. The majority of these arch-tempered monsters are basically master rank statistics on Elder Dragons that are fought in higher rank, or super amped stats on
those are the
master
beginnings of
rank
the
Elder
AT
Dragons.
system, which
Sometimes
really
the monster
wasn't
would
much
get
of
an
anything
attack or have
besides like
passive ability amplified, but
2
for
or
the
3
most
of them,
part, they're really
honestly.
just super tanky,
Again,
hard-hitting
there's
monsters that
it's
you've
very
already
interesting
been fighting
having
a
the
ton
Wilds
of
perspective at
times.
this
Now,
point,
when
since
they
its high
actually
rank is
bother to
basically
change
done,
up the arch-tempered
and just
fights,
how
they
much
made
has
them pretty good.
changed
AT Zora Magdaros
with some of the ideas that were brought out of Iceborne and into Wilds, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, especially talking about the tempered monsters. Like, my opinion on this has gone up, but like it can't for this game specifically, because it's a very much a prototype in a couple of ways. I don't know, like this game is more and less of a simulation than I thought it was going to be.
And yet still very fair form of what was already an excellent fight. And CR-Volcanic is
I think I just said some nonsense stuff from the fucking brain fog.
Perfectly matches the top speed that hunters have access to in Iceborne.
I don't even know what exactly I just said. I just felt myself like flawless. Yikes, this is a little messy, huh? It sucks. I apologize if this is a little. I think I'm doing fine throughout, but I'm catching myself in a couple of places being like, the sleepiness is hitting me, and I'm just like, I think I'm saying words that don't make sense.
Are just kind of basically nothing burger inflated
Ah,
fights,
well.
and AT Kashala
If
is
90% of it
one
is good,
of
that's
the
still
most
good.
atrocious things in the entire game. It's so annoying that players would just spam flash pods so that he would stay on the ground.
Oh yeah, talking
So
about how
developers
AT Kashala
decided to
basically
just
ruined
ruin
flash pods in this game.
forever.
They
Thanks,
just
dick.
they made 'em
Sticking
so
with the
bad.
Endgame content of Iceborne. Let's talk about the Guiding Lands. We'll touch on the weapon augment system a bit.
All right,
as
Guiding
well,
Lands I
since we're
really
intrinsically
liked looking at this
I'll
one
talk
as
about the
well,
map
and
itself in more
this
depth
one
later,
will
but
bring up a
long story
lot
short,
of
the Guiding
compare and
Lands is a
contrasts
gigantic hunting ground
with
composed of the
Sunbreak.
biomes of every single other map in the game. So naturally, you can fight just about every monster here.
Which I
One
almost feel like,
big
I almost felt like when I was
endless
writing it, I was like, is that fair or not? Because Sunbreak didn't exist before then. But at the same time, it's like, well, let's actually like look at a system that I think does a lot of World's ideas a whole lot better and executes them on a whole lot better to actually kind of make a greater point and elaborate on why I think the system that is presented here is not particularly good.
Is that monsters will drop and can be carved.
At the same time, though, I
do
kind of wonder if I went too deep into a system that didn't technically exist yet. Now, this section, I wanted to talk exclusively about the mechanics and how it interacted with the endgame. Wanted to evade the map as much as possible and the monsters as much as possible, obviously, as that was for later sections. And really just kind of talk about the options that the Guiding Lands provided you and the kind of factory system that the Guiding Lands provided to allow you to turn certain parts into other parts and turn those parts into lures to get out specific monsters, to get specific parts, and etc, 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 and how kind of like factory oriented the system kind of operated, which was kind of nice just because you could find ways to make it more expedient. You know, like the more you played the Guiding Lands, the more you actually were able to control the Guiding Lands, which I thought was something kind of interesting. Is you start out with it in a way that it's very wild and very untamed and very kind of all over the place, but the more you play it, the more you can kind of actually wrangle it and master it. But you can't, what I couldn't get around, what there's no getting around, is the hyper specific and hyper repetitive pricings on augments on weapons, unfortunately, which is, I mention and make a lot of mention of the kind of of like melting pot system that Sunbreak and Wilds will be getting into using to get around these issues.
Settling at level 1, if that's the case. Thankfully, the game seems coded to recognize which 3 areas you're prioritizing and won't let the upgraded levels interfere with each other's progress all that much.
Yeah, and then there's the whole like the level system thing, which I get why it exists, but at the same time,
absolutely developed to encourage
man, they are really banking on the fact that you are doing this with a minimum of 1 friend, aren't they?
To get all the materials that everyone needs. Now, I certainly don't mind there being structures in Monster Hunter that encourage.
That's how I did it with. That's how I did it with Nate. Honestly, is like we just like swapped which zones we had, and you have this one, I take that one. You have this one, I take that one. And then Nate used me for molly harvesting for the most part.
Those restrictions get way worse.
We wasted a lot of hours going for mollies. That
have at least one.
I don't even know. He got them all eventually.
Leveled, you're going to have to waste time resetting your levels to farm materials from
I don't know if he has everything in Wilds yet. Endemic life-wise.
This was especially obnoxious when Iceborne first
That is like one of my main Guiding Lands memories. Is like, Connor, I don't have this molly yet. You have your Hoarfrost Reach system up. I'm like,
first of all,
sure.
you can through hunting
yeah, sure. You can go molly hunting while there's a berry off trying to kill us, Nate.
RNG in the Guiding Lands to give you the monster that you need. You can meld for an item that will force spawn that monster. You can spawn any monster.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking a whole bunch about like how the actual luring system works.
Typically spawn that monster. However, if the biome is
let's
enough
see.
level to spawn the tempered version of the monster, it will be the
I
tempered
really just kind of do like the phrasing of it. I don't necessarily didn't come to any kind of grand conclusions or make any big discoveries about the game when I was looking at the Guiding Lands analytically. I think I was mostly just very, very satisfied with my phrasing. This was all stuff I felt and had known prior and beforehand and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it was. I really just kind of like how I said this. I like my phrasing here.
The only thing that makes this system not 100% convenient is that you need to have the regions at specific levels if you want tempered monsters to show up and drop their specific parts. You also have some limited ability to manually manipulate the levels of your Guiding Land zones. If you have your Guiding Lands biomes at levels that you want to keep them at and you don't want to have
I do think what you kind of happens, the reason why it is fair to bring Sunbreak up in the conversation here is it really does, I think, highlight where the flaws in this system are with the Guiding Lands, because you have a taste of something that is similar but better. Wilds kind of does that too. Because what I was coming to realize with the Guiding Lands was effectively a novelty. It really, really was. Because, like, yeah, no, it proclaims itself to be this whole thing where you have, like, every monster in the game effectively, and you're running around like, oh, I can fight this guy, and I can fight that guy, and this guy and that guy. But if you're really grinding, like you're really getting at it, what are you doing? You're fighting stuff, you're getting materials, you're getting rewards, whatever. You're trading those into Namiel lures. You get the coral system leveled up. You get like the forest leveled up, so that you also have non-tempered Zenogre, I think. And then it's like you're just going for those.
Things like the leveling system for the Guiding Lands, how you can only have so many regions at max level, how having a region at a set level alters the spawn.
And it really, it's interesting. Like the Guiding Lands banks its identity the most on being a free-for-all, hunt everything in the game, go nuts, go bananas, have fun. And yet, in comparison to the games that came after, it's honestly a good bit weaker in doing that and providing that actual experience.
Improve the weapon statistics beyond what its upgrade tree.
And that's why I think it's fair to bring in Sunbreak, honestly. Because, like, let's actually look at a system that does allow for
affinity or elemental
you to go after a whole bunch of targets and have more generalized material VAT systems and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think That's
your weapon
perfectly
drawn
fair.
instead of sheathing to heal with an item. Every augment takes up a certain amount of slots, and you can use Guiding Lance materials to increase the amount of slots that you have access to. The way things are set up, weapons of the same rarity have the exact same material costs.
I just
for
saw a
their
comment
augments.
saying
So,
world's a
if
big
you want
testing
to
ground
put
for a
an
lot of
attack
stuff, a lot of great
augment
ideas
on
are
Lunar
poorly
or
executed.
Gigante Lance,
Yeah,
it has the
it's
exact
interesting
same
to think about
materials
Monster Hunter
as an
in
attack
general. I think
augment on a
Monster Hunter
fatality
as a
hunting
series
weapon,
has kind
since
of
they
been
are
doing
both
that
rarity 12 weapons.
forever.
Weapons that max out
And
at
Monster
rarity
Hunter
10 or
has
11
been
have their
iterating it
costs
on
shared
itself
as
and
well.
growing
Since
on
these are
itself
bigger
and like
weapons, they require
introducing a
materials
thing
from
here and
future
then working at
monsters
it
before
there
they
and then
max out.
introducing
This
another
kinda takes
thing
some fun
and then
out of
working on that
Guiding
old
Lance.
thing
You're
and then
mostly going to
reinterpreting
be
that old
wanting
thing
to
and then moving
augment
around
your
and pushing
rarity
that piece
12
of the
weapons, since they usually
Monster
have the
Hunter has
best
been
weapon
almost kind of a
numbers.
perpetual
Each
tech
weapon's
demo for about
obviously
20
different and may
years.
need some slightly different augments to
World,
really
I
match up
think,
their
is
respective numbers, but a lot of
probably
times
the
you're gonna
worst
want those hyper
offender
generation
of
augments.
this,
Attack and
or at
crit
least
are
the
often
greatest
very
offender
necessary
of
as
this
well.
idea, and the one that
Sharpness
probably
and
suffers
element
the most
augments are
from it,
super weapon dependent,
and
defense
probably
and
the
slot
one where
augments
you
are
just like bump into
very
the
rarely
biggest
used.
amount of
So you're gonna
issues
be putting a
because they
lot of the
tried
same
so
augments on a
many
number of
things,
different weapons.
and unfortunately they
Very likely
become
that those augments are
rather
going to have the
cannibalistic, where you also have a
exact
game
same
like
cost.
Rise and
Meaning
Sunbreak that is
despite
very
having
experimental,
this
throws a
huge
ton of
selection
new
and
stuff at the
buffet of
wall.
monsters to fight
But a
all
big thing for
time,
me is that
you're
that
going to
game
be
is
luring out the same
substantially
monsters a
less
lot.
cannibalistic
If you want those health
in
augments
how
on
its
your rarity
mechanics
12s,
operate with
and
one
you
another.
do
Like,
want those health augments on virtually every single rarity 12 weapon that you're going to be augmenting, you are going to be fighting a lot of tempered Namiel and
Yeah, I can bump up
regular
this bit.
Zinogre. I know that Sunbreak came out after Iceborne, but I think it's worth doing a little bit of a comparison. Yes, in Sunbreak's endgame, augmenting weapons also needed some parts for specific monsters to get the higher tier augments. I think some specific item requirements like this are sensible because the developers don't want you to only grinding the easiest monsters over and over and over to mass produce resources. But the nice thing about Sunbreak is that a good chunk of the cost of the weapon augments, and I think pretty much the entire cost of the charm system, was any afflicted part that you want. Whatever you have in excess stock,
that
you can
system, my
throw into the
beloved,
vat,
honestly.
with some specific costs to ensure that
I've
you've
come to learn
actually
like
earned
that's
these
how I want to
profitable
do it. You
boosts.
want to do
Being on
you want
the
to have
system
like
doesn't
really
feel like it
expensive
punches me
end
nearly
game
as much
upgrade
as the Guiding
systems.
Lands
Like,
does
all right,
for
cool.
fun hunting whatever afflicted
Do
monsters I want
the
and
VAT
building up a
system. Make it so
reward
that I can just
stockpile.
dump a
Because
fuck ton
a
of stuff
huge
in
chunk
there,
of my upgrade
and then
payments
just
come from
like
cherry-picking whatever
generalize
I
my
want out
reward
of that
pools so that I
stockpile.
can get a
Augments
whole
from the Guiding Lands are far
good
more
amount of
restraining
mileage
in
out
their
of basically
costs.
any
Yes,
fight that
the
I
lures
do,
and the melder
that I can
allow
fight
some ability to
effectively
transfer
anything
some
in the
parts
game,
into others,
so long
and
as it's
to more
probably
conveniently
tempered or
hunt
end game level,
but
and I
if you
won't
have
get
these
punished for it. At least not
hyper-specific,
that
very
bad.
repetitive material costs, doesn't it make
I
the most
love
sense to
the I
repetitively
love
go
the
hunting
VAT
for
upgrade
those
systems,
monsters over and over
which
and
is
over and
something
over?
that this
Also,
game
the
just
item melder
does
is
not
really
have. It's
only
all
there to
very
slow down
specific.
your parts. So
And
if
it's
your
all
goal is to
very
upgrade other dragon
repetitive.
materials,
Like, I
there's
feel like the
nothing
Guiding
higher
Lands
fun
could have
than
solved a lot of
quote-unquote
its
to scale down
issues
each
if
of
the
those parts.
augments were
There's
maybe a little bit
nothing
more
you can
were
turn in
more
to temporary
differentiated and maybe a
materials.
bit more
You
related
have
to the
go
monster
fight
you
them
were
if you want their stuff, and you'll
building
need to
the
fight a
weapon
lot
off
them,
of.
because
Granted, that
12
has
weapons
some
need
limitations
parts
that some stuff
from
wasn't in
tempered
the
tier
Guiding
3
Lands, but
monsters
like
for their
a little
augments
bit more
right from the
something.
jump.
It,
Like I said
the
earlier,
fact that
you're
like every
highly
single
likely
rare
to be
8 weapon in the
focusing
game
solely
needed
on
tempered
rarity
Namiel
12
parts
weapons. I
to
think
be able to
the
get the
Guiding
health
Lands
regen
has a
is
little bit
like,
of an identity
well,
crisis.
now that's
It is
all I'm
designed
hunting
to be
is
this
tempered Namiel
randomly
in the Guiding
generated
Lands.
infinite hunting round
Because,
where
like,
you
I have
and your
multiple
friends can
Rarity
battle
8 weapons I
forever
want to
in a
be able to
massive
get up to that
gigantic stockpile of
functionality.
rewards
So, like,
that you can then
I
melt
guess it's
down
what we're
into augments
doing.
and layered gear
I
and
don't know.
lure to go make other stuff and fight other monsters with. It's this big whirling cycle of free hunting and recycling over
Gonna stand
and
up and
over
stretch
and
again.
over and over without the hassle of endlessly loading into and out of quests. But if you really want to get the best upgrades for the best weapons, that free hunting is an active detriment to your progress. You need to focus on a select group.
This
of
is
the
kinda
same
like the clutch
monsters
claw
over and
for
over and
me,
over and over.
where
If you have any hope of getting
the more I
multiple
thought
weapons
about
in
it and the
tip-top
more I
shape,
analyzed it and the
chiefly
more I'm like,
blame the
well,
fact
how
that
does
the
this
developers
actually
didn't think to price the weapon
operate with the
augments in a
game
way that
itself?
incentivized
As
hunting
the more
multiple
and more and
monsters
more I
with
was like,
issues with the
ah,
Guiding
man,
Lands
this
as a
is
whole. If it
this
wasn't
isn't
for
well
the fact
designed,
that you
unfortunately.
constantly need to hunt
That
the same
sucks, 'cause,
monsters
like,
with the same augments, that I don't
I
think the
wanted to
Guiding
I
Lands
wanted to
would
really
have
like the
needed
Guiding
its
Lands.
convoluted
I've
leveling
had a lot of
system
fun
and all of its
here,
caveats and
obviously.
control options.
It is
I
a
believe
fun
overspecified
region.
augment material
It is a
costs
cool
result
idea,
in a domino
but
effect
it's
of
really really, the promise is a little bit shallow, unfortunately.
Especially if you play solo. I'd suggest a few ways to make the system better, but as I was saying earlier, They kind of already did it. Sunbreak makes endgame fun.
Right, that almost, honestly, that is, I would say, kind of some of the fun in an analysis, so long as you don't make what you're analyzing into too much of a sacred cow for yourself. You know, if you can kind of remove yourself from it a little bit and take yourself out of it and be like, okay, well, I don't need to hate this product that I like just because I found flaws with that. I don't think there's no one in their right mind would be like, oh, you found issues with that? Well, that means you have to not like it anymore. No, I still adore this game. There was some stuff where like I was a little bit disappointed to find, like, man, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that I just don't think is incredibly well designed. But at the same time,
really sick idea, and
it does give me a little bit more appreciation for some of the older games that were better designed. It gives me a little bit more appreciation. It almost gives me a little bit more appreciation for the game itself, because, like, not so much because I think it's better. I do think it does struggle under scrutiny, but at the same time, it was fun to go this deep into it and to really try to legitimately think about the game and take it seriously and just kind of have unemotional is the wrong term for it, and unbiased would be the wrong term for it, but it's more so of unbiased. It's trying to be. I don't even want to say pragmatic necessarily, but taking a look at it in terms of, I don't know exactly what word I would use for it. It's not unemotional. Unbiased would probably be the right word for it. Like looking at something you love in a way that is unbiased and really trying to go deep into it and really trying to be like really trying to see how it ticks and how it works and how it operates. I do think you actually kind of come upon having a higher appreciation for it a little bit, unless it's really bad. Because like sometimes if you hold something up under scrutiny, you're like, wow, no, this is actually like pretty fucking terrible. Holy shit. But I don't know, even with something that is very mixed and very flawed and dare I say on an objective level a bit mid, like Monster Hunter World would be, there is almost this kind of like, well, I put this much work and this much passion and this much thought into this game. Clearly, I have some degree of passion for it, some high degree of passion for it, and subjectively, I really like it, so I don't know, there's ways in which actually going into this level of analytics and this kind of deep diving and being this critical of it almost makes me appreciate it or just have like a little bit more of a special relationship with it, just because I've been with it on this level of intimacy. I think that's something that can be very valuable about hyper analytical, very long form, very deep criticism that some people kind of glaze over. Is like there is a kind of level of intimacy with the product and also with the art form itself that you're looking into, both the art form of game design and the art form of like filmmaking and the art form of criticism in itself, where once you kind of bring yourself into that level and go into that place and go looking for that level of depth, I do think it kind of brings you a little bit more in touch with that art form. I do think it brings you a little bit more in touch with what you're analyzing. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we live in a little bit of there's a part of culture currently, like the let people enjoy things type of thing. I'm like, yeah, sure, obviously, but also like let people dislike things, or let people be critical of things. You know, not everybody who's trying to put out a deep criticism is aiming that criticism at the fans of the things that they are criticizing. You know, I think there's some people who really kind of just don't want to engage with media on a hyper deep level. You know, they think that it gets too pedantic, it gets too nitpicky, which nitpicky is a very abused word that I don't think gets used properly, unfortunately. There's a lot of people who get very wary of analysis that goes like this level of depth and trying to think about it on this kind of level.
Popped up a couple months after the original Siege dropped, but Cold
I don't really.
Base game world did not get her solo fight.
I don't know. I think that when you allow yourself to kind of go into this place,
a mechanic like this is ever
you find yourself just really like, you do it because you really like the medium.
So let's talk about the
like, I really like video games. I really like Monster Hunter. I really like criticism. I do this, and I made a 10.5-hour video because I really like all of these. And I had a lot of negative things to say about World and Iceborne. But doing all this and being on that analytical level, it really didn't kill my love and my appreciation for it at all.
Has some of the best elemental weapons in the game.
It just made my objective score for the game go down.
Which are potentially comparable in power to some of the best weapons that the game has to offer.
And having my objective score of a game go down, it didn't really hurt my perception of it and what it means to me. And what it, I feel like that's kind of something that some people are afraid of. Like, you go to that level of depth, and like, you kind of erase a level of enjoyment. You erase a level of meaning. You kind of boil it down to pure pragmatism. And I can tell from firsthand experience that it's really not the case. I really haven't ruined my appreciation or my passion for any of these things for the levels of dissection that I go into.
Much better, and most weapons have a solid option that
I think it's fun. I really think it's fun.
It's for this reason that
it might just make it so that an objective number will go down. But the other thing, the other kind of turnaround is when you go into something that's a little bit more mid, or maybe something that's a bit more mixed to even maybe bad, which I don't think there really is a Monster Hunter game I'd call bad at all.
They wisely made it so that you are guaranteed
when you are able to engage with art medium on that level of analysis. When you find something that is actually legitimately good, you appreciate that on a whole other level.
And that's about it. His RNG comes down.
You know, I was talking about at the beginning, I was talking about the fact that, like, a big part of me wanting to do this tonight was an infatuation with, like, Lord of the Rings and the behind-the-scenes type of things. And, like, I mean, those movies just, they hold up, and they hold up, and they hold up, and they're so good. And it's, the more you look into them and the more detailing and everything, you actually do kind of pop into a couple of issues that they might have, but you also find there's just more stuff to like and more stuff to like and more stuff to like the more you go into them. And like, when you find that stuff that's actually like legitimately, verifiably really good on levels that are provable on an objective level, man, you really start to appreciate them a lot. I barely even been talking about the Siege stuff that we've been talking about. I don't know if I had anything necessarily super interesting to say in terms of script writing for the Siege mechanics. The Siege mechanics, I mean, they are what they are. I don't think I really need to reiterate too much of what I was going into right here. I didn't have too much to add to this. I feel like I didn't really come to any grand revelations while writing this section either.
And had to reset the potential table to finally get it. So, Savi's weapons are usually pretty nice, but not all the time.
I will say,
in your favor, which makes it much better constructed.
We definitely have had a bit of a step down between the Safi weapons and the Gog Mazios weapons in certain respects. In certain respects, unfortunately.
They are competitive with Fatalis and Raging Brachydios for potential raw damage, and they are competitive with Call of Taroth and some other monsters for elements, depending on how you want to build your weapons. But with the Safi weapons,
did I have anything super interesting?
A ton of grinding and suffer through a ton of RNG to get weapons that are clearly far and away better than everything else in the game. That's not an issue with these weapons. So Safi's weapons are at their best when they're experimenting with niche and otherwise impossible set bonus combos. Their biggest issue is that investing into any one Safi Jiva weapon is fairly expensive on your Draco-like.
I think I was talking mostly about the different cushions that the Siege weapons have. Like, the Clove ones are the most random, but at the same time, them being the most random, they have, you get them and then you're kind of done with them beyond just the upgrades, like pretty clean, pretty quick and clean.
I like the sieges
Whereas the
overall.
Safi ones, there's
doesn't
way more
particularly
control in what
bother
you
me all
actually
that much
get, but
because
then you
even if I
actually
really
need to
wanted
do
to match
the
my
lottery
armor
shit.
sets, then yeah, the Call of
Which
Duty
can be
RNG
really
is
nice to
annoying,
you.
but there's almost always going to be an
Sometimes it's not.
if maybe slightly
Again, if you
worse
were watching the
replacements
live
for pretty much
streams,
all of her weapons.
you
In most
would
cases,
have an
you
idea
don't
of the
need
pain
both
and
of
misery
them
and
to
suffering that
be
was trying to get the Teostra
viable,
technique
but she will
on
often give you a
the
slight
hunting horn that I wanted to
advantage.
use in the lead up to going in
Safi
after
needs a fair bit of investment,
Fatalis.
but the RNG will usually
That was a
in favor,
pain in
and
the
it's better
dick.
for making unique sets than it is for making the best gear in the game. We're not talking about this aspect yet, but I also really enjoy both of the fights. Say for Phase 1 Call to Wrath. I like mechanics in Monster Hunter that are built around multiplayer, teamwork, and huge spectacle, though I do think the single-player versions of these fights took way too long to show up. I find the battles enjoyable to run several times in a row. If sieges ever do come back, I don't think they need to change the reward system too far from how Safi's was executed. I get
Yeah, I
having
think
some
GOG changed
RNG
things in
to
a couple
promote
of bad
several
ways,
runs on the
unfortunately.
raid, but they should keep it so that the RNG works with you, so that you're not wasting time on runs that give you nothing that you want. I think
I can
Safi
just
G
kinda
the
let this
specific
run, I
raid
think, for
does
a second,
pretty
unless
good
something
job
comes
of
up that
still
I can
having
think
a
of.
kind of MMO raid boss RNG
I'll read chat
type
for
of
a second.
system, while still fitting in with Monster Hunter's ability to reward you with specifics for what you're going for and still respecting your time, better than Kulve Taroth's completely random table.
I don't know if I would say
great
Safi
memories
Jiva
of running both of
respects
these
your
raids
time.
with fans and with friends,
In certain
and
respects,
I'm
but not
super
in
happy
not
that
in
they were
others.
implemented. There's some imperfections, but I genuinely enjoy both of these inclusions to Monster Hunter. Before we wrap things up with the game's mechanics, I'm going to go over a couple more general game features that will not be getting their own timestamps.
All right, looks like we've hit the etc. section
So,
before we go over the
in all of that,
analytical analysis.
What do I think of Monster Hunter World Iceborne objectively as a video game with mechanics and all that goodness? Analytically, what do I think? The game's a little bit rough around the edges, that's for sure. There are definitely a lot of growing pains here. I wanted to be as objective and as honest as I could with a game that I love, and the reality is, this game has issues, like big issues. Issues with cushions. Issues I can forgive in a few places.
All right, so
issues
just going
that
into
I sometimes don't interact with. Issues that may not bother me or you or whoever a ton, but you know, they're there. I don't think that means that the game's bad. Not at
Do
all.
I not have
Honestly,
the
I think
etc.
it's
things in the full release? Oh wow,
probably
so the
one
full
of
release
the
have been
most
actually
flawed
longer.
Monster Hunter games
Huh.
out there. It has some
I'm just
comfort
noticing that
options
now.
I don't really like. It's got mechanics that I think
I think we're just going into the
well,
objective
supporting
overview thing now.
cannibalization. I think the end
I think
game is
some of
more
the,
of a complicated mess,
I mean, honestly,
and
that
the
section was
RNG
only like an extra
decorations
2
are
minutes,
really
maybe.
annoying. I think there's a bit too much MMO FOMO in here. I believe that all of that's true. I believe that all of that's valid. World and Iceborne, still awesome. And, you know, like I said in my thesis,
Yeah, I
big
still
part of
hang,
that
still
is
stand
because
by that.
this
The game is still
Monster Hunter.
awesome.
And, you know, that's not a statement that I make in the name of blind brand loyalty. These games are so damn solid in terms of loop, boss design, gameplay, and weaponry that a lot of these big issues that I meticulously broke down can sometimes just not do a ton to inhibit my enjoyment of the game. Yeah, sure, the Temporal and Rocksteady Mantle are really brain dead, but yeah, I try not to use them all the time, and, you know, when they're over and done with, I just go back to playing normally. Yeah, I don't really like that I can go replace my Mega Potions all the time, but I don't go for that restock that often, and yeah, I still get a ton of satisfaction from the game's challenging fights. Yeah, Guiding Land's way too complicated, but the game doesn't really ask you to min-max the augments that much. You know, I just try to be honest with everything. Point out the pros and the cons where I saw them. Still, big fan. I just have some issues with the game. Pretty proud of my analysis of the gameplay mechanics of this, actually. And coming up
Let's see.
is going to be
Is
the
there
part of the
anything
video
to
where I
talk
just
about kind of
delay
closing things
forever
out
living in
here?
this game. This is the culmination
I will say
of
with the
mechanical
objective
and
analysis bit at the end,
analysis. Rather
it
than
was
not
a
really
redraft,
analysis
and I wish I
of the
redrafted
monsters,
it
the
again.
weapons,
It
and all
is
that stuff. There's
not
still
where I
gonna be
wanted it
levels
to
of
be
that. It's not
when
just
I was
gonna be
talking about the
pretty
comparison,
nice, but
especially at the very,
if
very end,
you wanted
going
my
over and talking
review
about
of Monster Hunter World
Sunbreak
Iceborne,
versus
yeah, this
Iceborne
whole
and then
section,
trying to
this first
substantiate
part,
it.
that's
So
it.
I
We're
am
gonna
not
move on to the more fun stuff.
thrilled with,
But, you know, here's a really interesting question. Which
yeah, no, I thought that this would be fun. I thought that this would be a fun little section where I was like, ooh, what do I think is better, Sunbreak or Iceborne?
in
Sunbreaker
totality
Ice.
his game.
Yeah, Sunbreaker Ice.
So
Hang
where
on.
do
Yes,
I
yes, those are the names. I got the
First of
sleepiness
all,
in my head again. I'm like,
subject.
did I flip
like
around the
Iceborne
words
better.
again? Like,
I
no,
prefer
I didn't
Monster
say
Roster. I
Ice
prefer
Break and
Fast-paced
Sunborn.
music.
No,
I
no, 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 no.
really
But yeah, no, I
enjoy
thought this would be really fun. I thought it would be
over-the-top
fun to like, what do
gameplay
I
games
like
and
better?
my
Because
preference
I
is
never
always
really
to
got in
be
on this whole
more
fucking
boots on the ground
war.
combat
Like even
and
people
comfort
who weren't
titles.
really like
I love
anti other
spectacle
game
and
kind of got
titles
into the
that
whole
offer
like
better
Rise
than
versus World
Sunbreak. In
discussion.
most
I never
places,
did.
hyper-customization
I never
game
found it like
offers
hyper
operating
interesting,
things
and I thought like a
such as
whole
the
bunch of the
manuals and power
criticisms
gadgets,
and
I like that more than the
argumentation
switch
back
skills,
and forth
which I
between the
really
two
like
were
conceptually, but I don't think they hit their
kind of
full
mean-spirited and can
potential
occasionally
in
be
that
in
game.
bad
I
faith.
also
So I'm
have
like,
more
this could be
memories
really
of
fun to
the
like
world
take a
of
look
Iceborne.
at.
Granted,
And
part of that
it would
is
also be really
because
fun
I
because like
played through
I
it
kind of
with
think
friends
Sunbreak's a
and
better
family,
game,
but even
and it would
before
be
that, I
kind of
remember my
fun
original
and
playthrough
funny and
more
also
than
a
my
little
original
bold
playthrough of Rise,
in
and I
Iceborne's
don't
game to
regret
then be
a
like,
second of the nearly
no, but
2,000
I think
hours
like
I put
Sunbreak's
in.
actually a little bit
Right.
better.
Could have put in more, honestly.
Honestly, I was kind of thinking it was going to be a little bit more controversial than it actually was. Not a lot of people got on my ass about it. My whole thing really is I didn't really. I don't know. I was just trying to get through this section, and I made a whole bunch of claims that I think like Sunbreak does this, and this better than I think Iceborne does it, and I didn't really substantiate it in this all that much of the slightest. It kind of like goes off this assumption that you've watched both of these videos. And like, I don't even know if all of the points that I threw together really stand up against each other. I don't know. I still do. The biggest thing for me is like the more and more I've played Sunbreak, the more I've thought about Sunbreak, the more I have thought about it analytically, the more I've done it. Sunbreak has really only gotten better in my perception and in my opinion and in my subjective view and also in like an analytical view, whereas Iceborne has really only gotten a bit weaker as time has gone on as far as I'm concerned and as much as I've looked at it and analyzed it and whatnot. And I still think I enjoy Iceborne a bit more, honestly. It definitely means more to me. But personally, that one is I think I'd still stand by the fact that I think Sunbreak is the better game, but I do not think I did a good job substantiating that in this video. And again, I am not making a statement. I would do this again. What I am glad I did is I did some clarification regarding objective analysis and objective assessment, because I ain't a bitch. A lot of people, I think, get confused when you're trying to make an objective assessment and trying to say that, like, my opinion is true because it's objective. It's like, no, I tried to use a system of facts to go after a point to make a subjective conclusion, but root it in a whole bunch of objectively verifiable facts. And it did. I wish I did a better job actually trying to skill and tool combination substantiate the use of objective facts that I used to match the two games up against one another. I think I could have done a much better job. And if I actually tackle this question again, I will do a much better. It'll probably have to be like its own thing, honestly, because really trying to go and compare the two games on analytical levels and subjective levels would probably be too long of a tangent for it to fit in something like this. And Iceborne handled it. Sunbreak also provides a substantially less vague numerical information in-game regarding monster hit zone. Yeah, now we're just kind of like going down some of the information. But I'd have to like look back over at some of the points that I make and see if I even agree with them anymore. And there's also just no for the most part, I think I probably do. Though at the same time, I think I probably could have explained some things a little bit better. I think this section is. I still kind of stand by what I say. But I think this bit is a little weak. A little weak. I do still think I've communicated what I wanted to communicate well enough, but it's comparing and contrasting two games when the video only analyzed one of them. And I don't think that can make for it being like the best thing. Maybe I would have even like not included this if I was to really revise it. All right, and that is part 1 of a celebration and critique of Monster Hunter World director's commentary. I don't think I'm going to be doing part 2 and part 3. I don't think I'm going to. I was starting to run out of things to say in part 1, which was the much more interesting one to go over. So I don't think I'm going to have enough to really talk about the remaining 8 hours. But I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I gave this a shot. This was really, really fun, I think. I had a lot of fun doing this. At this point, we're going to be, I think, winding down. because I was kind of falling asleep on myself. I'm not going to leave just yet unless it starts to get like wicked bad. But I am going to cut back over to chat because I know you guys have mostly been using me as background audio for a good long bit. We are going to pull... Why does it keep jumping back to that? I have no fucking idea. I'm going to pull chat back up on stream. And we can talk for a little bit, I think. And we're just going to like hang out for a little bit. I'm not going to boot up a game right now because I think I'm too tired for that, unfortunately. But we can chat for a little while and talk about like the video or the game or anything. You're getting your chat box back in a second. Don't worry about it. It should be back up on stream now. Question time? Yeah, I mean, we can let's chat for a little bit because I'm gonna be like winding down. I'm not gonna leave just yet, but I'm also not gonna boot up a game. I do think I am gonna stream Try tomorrow though. I do think I'm gonna be back with Try tomorrow and see if any of the guys want to hop on and hang out in the call and do something a little bit more conventional. But yeah, no. So let's just hang out. We could talk about I assume we'll talk mostly about like the video or World of Iceborne in general. But we can talk about anything, honestly, for a little while until I get kind of tired and want to wear it down. Thank you for the donations, by the way. I think I called. I don't think I missed any of them. I did see Kerm's right before we started. I saw Donna and Dan's right when we were going. So thank you for those. Appreciate those very much. Rare occurrence where Connor gets to be the one who reads chat. Yeah, a rare occurrence where Connor gets to be the one who reads chat, and Connor's also not actively fighting a monster and getting himself killed. There's something really funny about the dichotomy between relax, let's discuss game design video Connor and hyper, let's open Popeye's insurance stream Connor. Yeah, dude, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, it's the same person. It's very much the same person, and neither of them are like a front or like disingenuous or anything. Like, they're both me. They really are just both me. I think, honestly, having a guy friend group around is just going to do that to you, honestly. Like, it's just going to happen. You're just going to bring out the stupid in one another. Like, you want to make the other guys you're talking with laugh. But, yeah, no, when it's just me, like, no, like, let's talk about game design for, like, 4 hours. Why the fuck not? That sounds awesome. But yeah, no, I do think the dichotomy is very, very, very funny. It is not lost on me that I am a very different person, with and without my gentleman with me, which they will likely be on stream with me tomorrow if I'm streaming tomorrow, which like 90% certain I'm going to stream tomorrow. So some of them are probably going to be on with me, and that means it's going to be fucking silly in here. Will Connor ever be that guy? I don't know. Been playing Space Marine 2. I don't know if it's just me, but Tyranids are way more enjoyable than Chaos. That is the general consensus. Chaos is... I definitely like Chaos more than some of the other guys I play with. Because some of those guys just like... I'm going to call you out, Raditz and Shadow. Sometimes when the game's when it's a little bit challenging, you guys just start to kind of pout. You do, but I'm just giving you bullshit. But you can learn the meatballs. The meatballs are consistent. You just got to learn the parry timing. But like the Tyranids are just better. They are just better. Less annoying. We once again going to repeat history where the anniversary stream is more rotted than the last stream. I mean, there's virtually zero rot beyond me just getting sleepy a couple of times in this one. So, I mean, by default, tomorrow probably kind of has to be, yeah? Trauma from the Chaos Spawn. You can learn them. You definitely can learn them. They are not impossible to take down and manage. Blast is still struggling on Fatalis. He'll get it. Takes a long time to learn. Let's see. Is there anything I'm missing? Sunbreak doesn't bring in any additional problems to Rise like Iceborne did to Worlds. Not at the same level. Definitely not at the same level. Because, I think what kind of happens is some of Iceborne's changes roll in and begin to cannibalize. Like the Clutch Claw especially rolls in and begins to cannibalize off of things like mantles and the secret level armor skills and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it starts to just, and like the mantles and the slinger and blah, 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 blah. And it just kind of like starts to domino effect. Sunbreak does definitely bring in like its own problems. Like the Curious crafting system wasn't phenomenal or anything like that, but it didn't create compound issues to the same extent. The balance of rot must be restored. Yeah, no, every time we have like a good insightful stream, something stupid's going to have to happen on the next one. Well, or for the next couple ones, honestly. We really don't get like too many ones where it's just me talking and riffing and being relatively normal. We don't get too many, because I almost always stream with the guys now. I want it, because like, dude, I gotta tell you, I am more and more as I go into streaming. I understand how Vanoss Gaming feels, because Vanoss does like nothing solo, virtually. Unless it's like a sponsored video for a single player game, and even at that, he might have another guy in the Discord call, but he does almost nothing solo. He's like, he wants to have his boys with him. He needs the friend dynamic with him. He, like, that helps him be funny. It helps him get out of his shell. Like, I can fucking yap with the best of them. I can be funny enough, either accidentally or on purpose by myself, but like, dude, I want my guys. Like, I want my guy. I want the dynamic I got with the dudes. So, like, I'm like, essay stuff is different, because I do essay stuff and he doesn't. But, like, when I'm streaming, or if I'm doing, like, a gameplay recording type of thing, I want the guys. Because it's just going to be so much funnier with the guys. Like, it's just going to be such a much better dynamic. Like, I can be insightful by myself. I am entertaining in not to say that, no, yeah, I'm insightful by myself. I am more entertaining when I'm with the guys, because I have something I can bounce off of. Let's see. Iceborne is probably the most controversial expansion, despite arguably being the most popular. That might be the case, yeah, because I feel like it definitely helps. People generally, I think, really liked Worlds. People really liked World. People didn't love Rise. Then Iceborne comes out. People generally really liked Iceborne, but Iceborne had a lot of issues. But Sunbreak was such a big improvement over Rise that there is kind of like something to say about like the relationships that the expansions had with their core games. I think that's probably a good reason why, unless something bad happens, why the Wilds expansion will likely be very favorably viewed, because Wilds is a very controversial game, you know, whether you like it or not. It is a very controversial game by just definition of the word. And if the expansion comes out, very substantive, it's very fun, it irons out a lot of issues. You know, some of your performance stuff gets better. You know, eventually it gets like, and it ends very, very strong. The expansion for Wilds will be very beloved, much like Rise was a very controversial game. And then Sunbreak came out. It made a lot of improvements, had some of its own issues, a lot of improvements, and a lot of just really good things of its own merits, and Sunbreak is very beloved. I feel like World is probably the least controversial of the three base games, and yet Iceborne is likely, I think, going to be the most controversial of the three expansions. I think that's very interesting. Playing FF16 since the start of Christmas break, been loving the game. Never thought I'd be so upset over a game ending and realizing I might never be able to get that same experience ever again. I hear you 1000%. Not so. I still gotta beat FF16. Honestly, it's just been sitting in my house, just kind of roaming around. I felt that same way with DS1. I felt that same way with the Lions campaign in Fire Emblem Three Houses, where I'm like, dude, this story is over. Like, that part of my life is over. Like, what am I gonna do? I feel that pain considerably. Progress on Hive Fleet Geismagorm is that I have not really been able to paint because of school, but at the moment, I don't need real free time to be painted. Yeah, you just gotta fish for it a little bit. Since our last gauntlet of funny quests, the spawners got even more stupid. That's good. I enjoy our custom quests. The mic is fritzing out. Hang on. Ooh, okay. That is not great. Okay, hang on. Yikes. All right, what is that? Let me check here. Do a screen swap. Check, check. Am I a little bit too close here? I don't think I got like too much spit on it or anything like that. Let me do... Let's do this. Let me do an unplug, replug. Actually, let me... Alright, I unplugged it. We'll plug it back in. We'll see what happens. That's an advertisement. Nice GLaDOS cosplay. Check, check. 1, 2. Microphone, microphone. Hmm. Alright, that is still scratchy. Still crackling. Okay. Let me check something. Might as well keep this up. Oh. Scratchy audio. Your computer can't keep up. Do I have an issue? Let me check my task manager. That's probably... Maybe? No. Hang on. Let me check, check, check. OBS is at 68%. Can OBS not handle this? Let me try... Let me try an Audacity recording real quick. Check test 1 2. Check test 1 2. Check check test. Check check test. Check test 1 2. Check test 1 2. Check. Okay, it is not an OBS issue. Okay. Interesting. Throwing against a wall repeatedly? No, I am not going to do that. That's unfortunate. It's probably pretty easily rectifiable. I probably just nudged something the wrong way. I can try just like unplugging a couple of... Actually, let me do... Microphone. Alright, let's swap back. I'll go back over to you. So this should clear it up. I'll go back to the Yeti for a second. It's probably a setting thing I flicked. No, it's not a setting thing I flicked. It's probably just like something needs to be corrected. Thankfully, I still have the other mic plugged in. All right, let's do the good old fashioned, just like unplug my cables and replug my cables. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one's finicky. 5. Got those. I'll do another Audacity check. Check test 1 2. Check test 1 2. 1 2. Check test. Here. 1 2 1 2. Check test 1 2. Where the hell is that ticking even coming from? Someone get the weekend on this. All right, are we good? The sample beat ain't that fire. Hey, dude, I'm learning, all right? I'm learning. Shut up. Leave me alone. All right, I think I nudged a cable. I think that's it. I'm just listening on my phone right now. Connor using the end of stream to promote his SoundCloud. I got it fixed. You know what? That's all that fucking matters to me. Let me swap it back over. 3. All right, back to 3. Seems good for now. Yeah, no, I think I jostled a cable. I think that's literally it, because I swapped back over to the Blue Yeti. I unplugged every XLR cable, replugged them, and it's fine. All right. You got him down to around 30% on Fatalis? Nice. The issue you were doing check to... Oh, fuck off, Pekka. That's good. I hate that that's good. Shut up. 30% on Fatalis, though. That's pretty good. Put that shit on Spotify, Connor. We will listen to it for the memes. Should I do that as a... you know what? I should put that... No, that'd bomb. That'd do so bad as an overflow clip. I said this earlier, Connor, but I saw a video of someone modding Risen Volstrax into Elden Ring. It looked nuts. I saw that earlier today. That looked sick as shit. It was so fucking cool. Ticking bomb beat goes hard. Mike was trying to recreate the Phase 4 theme of the Clockwork Dancers from Silk Song. Straight out of New England. All right, these are good. These are good. The discussion has fallen through, but these memes are good. I guess I just got to be a little bit more careful with the wires, huh? I just bumped it out of line. Easily rectifiable, though. That was good. Bombachi core. Uh, the mod is sick, but it's unfortunately a paywalled mod. I guess that makes sense because that had to have been a lot of work. I can understand them wanting to get money for that. I don't know. I feel like if I wanted to get money for a mod, I'd probably do a Patreon rather than a paywall. But I mean, to each their own. I can't say I don't understand. Glad you guys are doing well with Fatalis, though. Mods make them listen to that Uncle Aaron type beat. What the fuck? I'm glad you enjoyed. I'll put that one out on the market. I think it'll go pretty well. Just make an overflow clip and call it "I make beats now." All right. Been going for about 3 hours. I'm going to keep chatting for a little while. Isn't it illegal to charge money for an unofficial mod? I don't know, actually. I don't know. Maybe. It's a good question, actually. Been playing DK Bonanza and it's honestly kind of fire. Most people I've heard have generally really liked DK Bonanza. Can we make Connor's producer tag? Reference to Uncle Aaron's beat in the PS4 Miles Morales game, which was bad. I heard it. I don't think I've heard it, but what I heard was like the beat was effectively what a white person would think a cool black person's beat would sound like, was what I heard it be compared to. I can't say that I've heard it for myself, but that is the comparison that I heard. It is illegal, I'm pretty sure. That's why Garden of Eyes got shat on so much. Oh, really? Interesting. Depends on the TOS of the game company. Yeah, I guess that does make sense, because like a company could... if it's a company's property and they're not going to press charges or pursue anything, it's like, yeah, you want to paywall it? You can paywall it, sure. That would, I guess, be in their hands, yeah. I don't think most companies would let you, but... Or wouldn't let you, rather. What did I say? Anybody else got some stuff they want to chat about regarding the video, or like Monster Hunter in general, or just like anything at all? Or do we guys go on and maybe like roll out of here? Because it is hitting like right at about 3 hours. We don't have to stay too long. I think the mic issue unfortunately kind of derailed the conversation a little bit, so I know to finagle around with the tower a little bit less. It's just not quite at a height. It's like right at... my brain kind of wants it to be a little bit higher, but honestly, it is like right at my mouth level. Like maybe... No, it is right there. We hit the brain rot of the stream. Yeah. Didn't even intend for it, and it happened. To be fair, I'm very glad it stopped happening, because this was a lot of money. How is the new microphone, by the way? I have it like right up to the mouth right now. Can you guys tell like a necessary difference with? You will definitely be able to tell when it comes to the video essay work, and especially when some extra filters are added on to it through Audacity. But just from this, I know I haven't had it like right up to my mouth the entire time, just because I'm moving my seat a whole bit. But what do you guys think of it? How good is it? Gogma or Safi weapons? Safi weapons for sure. Gogma has some of its own merits, but I feel like it's just too much of a setback for control options for the most part is its biggest issue. One of the people I managed to spread gas lamping to in a couple of months ago reportedly used it in a couple of other groups. That's hilarious. I'll bump the gain on this thing a teeny little bit. Like that. don't want to like peak the mic, but maybe get like a little bit more gain out of it. New mic sounds great. That's good. Sounds pretty good. Can't tell the difference, but it definitely sounds good. Yeah, it's definitely going to be more apparent when it's the essay stuff as opposed to the streaming stuff. Let's see. What other games am I excited for this year? What's coming out this year? That's a good question. What games are coming out this year? I don't feel like I know. Because I don't know if I'd have anything like huge on my list at the moment. There's Stories 3, but that's obvious. Would be present if Connor did a stream on the Bradley Bat. That game did look kind of sick, actually. Lego Batman, Legacy of the Dark Knight's coming out. I don't know if I'm gonna get that. Maybe. I'd have to really it'd have to be like. I don't know. I don't really have my nose to the ground exactly on like what's coming out this year. I don't feel like I'm seeing a bunch of names just from a Google, but I'm like, I don't really know. Lego Batman multiplayer streams when, and that'd be something. Maybe I'll get it. I'd like to do some more like goofball games with some of the guys, like something like we couldn't stream Gartic Phone, but I totally record Gartic Phone. But I'd also do like fucking Worms would be fun probably. Some like Repo maybe. Some like the more kind of like goofy, some more like goofy party games with some of the guys would be a lot of fun, I think. Cooking Mama 6. Alrighty. I think I am good to be done for the night. Yeah, conversation's kind of winding down. I am tired. Jackbox as well? Yeah, Jackbox probably. All right. Yeah, all right. I'm going to wind down for tonight. I am probably going to be back tomorrow. I'll confirm that probably tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. Thank you guys for 3 years on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We'll be probably have a good show for you tomorrow. Laggy video still being worked on, still coming along rather well. Kind of slow and steady as there's a whole bunch of like extra stuff going on in the process to try and get it as good as possible. You'll see when it comes around. But yeah, no, so we're going to wrap up for tonight. I'll probably see you tomorrow. Thank you guys once again. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of your evening, and bye-bye.